Chapter 1308 Spirit Sea Continent, Realm of Stars, Xingqian School. Above the Lingxiao Palace, an invisible wave of time and space rippled like water. A black-robed figure appeared silently. He was shrouded in light, as if he had walked out from the depths of time and space. "Who's there?" Outside the main hall, a blue figure flashed into the main hall. Her aura was extremely powerful. She was a quasi-emperor. As soon as she landed in the palace, her gaze immediately fell on the ball of black light that had appeared silently above the palace. She was about to go forward and interrogate him. Just then, the hazy black light in the ball of black light changed, and a pair of eyes appeared. What a pair of eyes! With just one look, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea felt as if her soul had been frozen. In the eyes, her physical body and even her divine kingdom were trembling and collapsing. It was as if in the next moment, her body would shatter and turn into dust with just a little bit of force. Invisible light surged in the black light, and a slender black-robed figure walked out of the light. He was wearing a black robe and took off his hat, revealing his slightly feminine and handsome face. "My lord!" The Dragon King of the Azure Sea was stunned at first, and then her delicate body trembled violently. Earlier, Qin Feng was like a surging sea in her impression, unfathomable. However, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea was a quasi-emperor of the same level. Although she was no match for him, she boasted that she could still touch him. However, at this moment, that black-robed figure was clearly where he was, but she could not sense any trace of his existence. That trace of aura that leaked out seemed to be able to make her feel scared out of her wits. She took a deep breath, looked up, and could not help but ask, "My lord Yu." Qin Feng turned his gaze and waved his hand. His eyes flashed with a trace of endless depth like the starry sky and the universe. The Great Emperor Realm. That's right, he had broken through to the Great Emperor Realm. He had conquered the Feiluan Crystal Wall system, and with a part of the Feiluan Crystal Wall's luck, he had finally purified all 15 heavenly laws into divinity and merged them into one, advancing to the Great Emperor Realm in one go. At this moment, he was unprecedentedly powerful. It was as if he could kill a quasi-emperor with just one look. This kind of power was world-shaking. As soon as he returned to the Spirit Sea Realm, he could sense the existence of the many water elemental heavenly divine thrones. He could even sense the innate deity thrones that he couldn't sense no matter how hard he tried. This power was so strong that it seemed to be able to change the world. At this moment, he felt as if he was standing on the highest mountain in the Spirit Sea Realm, overlooking the world. At this moment, Qin Feng felt unprecedentedly relaxed. "There's no need to be so restrained. Have a seat." Qin Feng turned around and sat on the throne in the center. He closed his eyes and calculated. A strange light flashed in Qin Feng's eyes. The flow of time between the two crystal wall systems was obviously different. In the Feiluan Crystal Wall system it was close to a year, but here it was only 3 to 4 months. Sha. At this moment, Qin Feng's heart skipped a beat. There was a series of footsteps. A moment later, a black-robed young man who looked exactly like him appeared. After this young man appeared, he wasn't surprised to see Qin Feng sitting on the throne in the center. He bowed slightly, turned into a stream of light, and entered Qin Feng's body. In these 2 months, a lot of information about Xingqian School appeared in Qin Feng's mind. Qin Feng opened his eyes slightly. A deep light flashed in his eyes. In these 3 to 4 months, Xingqian School had changed a lot. According to his plan, the 365 star cities had been built. The 48,000 satellite cities were also more or less finished. Many Xingqian School disciples had already started to settle in. The enormous ancient star god formation completely enveloped the domain of stars. The entire domain of stars was like an iron bucket that couldn't be splashed with water. In the past few months, the ancient desolate spirit realm could be said to be ready for action. Strange phenomena occurred frequently in the wilderness, and many demon gods appeared one after another. Many of the demon clan's forces had increased greatly. Their ambitions grew, and they had already set their sights outside of the wilderness. If it wasn't for the ancient star god formation's power that blocked the demon clan's forces outside of the wilderness, Xingqian school would have been under a lot of pressure. Even so, the disciples of Xingqian school were still nervous. They were constantly on guard against the demon clan's sneak attacks. It wasn't just Xingqian school. A storm was brewing in the other regions as well, and undercurrents were surging. Nearby, the Xian sect of Snow region seemed to have been targeted by an ancient ice elemental king. In the Biling sect, there were also many ancient immemorial experts who seemed to have their eyes on this treasure land. However, the appearance of the ninth evil ancestor of West Kunlun suppressed these experts. However, the strange thing was that the ninth evil ancestor didn't touch the Biling sect or the original forces of the northern spirit realm. This surprised many forces and made them abnormally wary. As for the many sects further away, there were also frequent wars. Some ancient existences appeared, either challenging the position of the original 72 mysterious sects or secretly unifying some large and small sects to establish their own forces. Although the various domains weren't completely in chaos, the signs of chaos had already appeared. What attracted the most attention of Xingqian school was the merger of the other two branches of Xingqian school, the Sun-Moon Sword sect and the Tianliang sect. The new primordial Xingqian school had already replaced the original 11th sect on the sect rankings. Half a month ago, the primordial sect of the primordial spiritual realm was in an emergency. The experts of the primordial sect came to the domain of stars to seek reinforcements. It was obvious that the new primordial Xingqian school's will to unify the major star veins was very strong. Inside Xingqian school, many elders were inclined to support the primordial sect. Without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. Once the primordial Xingqian school annexed the primordial sect, the Xingqian school, as the main branch of the former primordial Xingqian school, would definitely be under great pressure. However, there were also some elders of Xingqian school who were unwilling to support the primordial sect. Many elders believed that with the primordial star god formation, the Xingqian school was completely unafraid of the provocation of the primordial Xingqian school. For half a month, they had been arguing. The emissary of the primordial sect was already anxious. However, Wang Daoi seemed to have disappeared from the sect recently. He only left a few words and disappeared into the depths of Xingqian school. Qin Feng stood up from the throne. Seeing Qin Feng stand up from the throne, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea hurriedly stood up and waited on the side. Qin Feng glanced at the beautiful Dragon King, his expression unchanged. He had to save the primordial sect. Whether it was to prove his Tao to the Lord God or to prepare his own foundation, he would never allow the so-called primordial Xingqian school to grow. If the Xingqian school had to have a master, it could only be him, Qin Feng. After pondering for a moment, Qin Feng suddenly shouted, "Guards!" Outside the Lingshao Hall, several disciples guarding the hall immediately walked in after hearing this. "Sect Master!" Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a domineering aura. "Send the emissary of the primordial sect to discuss the matter of assisting the primordial sect." Chapter 1309. The Hunyuan sect's envoy was a pinnacle Middle Heaven realm expert. He was only one step away from the King realm. It was a green-robed elder surrounded by Ewood starlight. He wasn't an expert from the ancient era. Instead, he was a peerless expert from the Hunyuan sect in this era. He was called Elder Xianmu. However, this peerless expert of the Hunyuan sect, Old Man Xianmu, was like a frightened rabbit beside Qin Feng, trembling. The two of them flew above the sea of clouds amidst the strong winds. After a short discussion, Qin Feng decided to go to the Hunyuan spiritual realm alone to rescue the Hunyuan sect. The elders of the Xingqian school had no objections. It was useless even if they had objections. In the Lingxiao Palace, ever since old man Xian Mu sensed the aura that Qin Feng unintentionally emitted, his expression was stupefied. He was filled with fear and respect towards Qin Feng. The sea of clouds was vast. The two were extremely fast. However, Elder Xian Mu couldn't help but speak when he felt the surrounding air getting colder. Heavenly King, we're going to the Hunyuan spiritual realm. This path doesn't seem to lead to the Hunyuan spiritual realm. Qin Feng glanced at Elder Xian Mu. His indifferent gaze made Elder Xian Mu tremble. Qin Feng retracted his gaze and said indifferently, "You're right. This direction doesn't lead to the Hunyuan spiritual realm. We're going to the Hunyuan spiritual realm to assist the Hunyuan sect. This is just a side trip." A side trip? Elder Xian Mu's expression was ugly. He instinctively wanted to refute. However, in the face of such a terrifying expert, the words that were at the tip of his tongue could not leave his mouth. Holding it in, his old face turned a little red. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. The star veins had to be unified. However, the destruction of the Hunyuan sect didn't have much to do with him. He just needed to ensure that the star veins' providence fell into his hands. There was no end to cultivation. Although a great emperor was strong, he was still far from being an overgod. Everyone knew that only overgods could truly control their own fate. Especially for a great emperor, the last step was to sever 3 lives. It required an immeasurable amount of providence. He needed more providence. However, he still had to make a trip to the primordial spirit realm. However, by the time he arrived, the fate of the Hunyuan sect would depend on its own luck. Before that, he needed to solve some small problems around the realm of stars. As the saying goes, how can one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? The profound sect of the snow region bordered the field of stars. Qin Feng would never allow anything to happen to it. There was also the 9th evil ancestor of the northern spirit region. Qin Feng first had to figure out what this evil ancestor was up to. The snow domain was icy cold. The black sect of the snow region was the number 1 sect in the far north snow region. Among them, the Ice School, Snow School, and Water School were famous far and wide. They were also one of the few first-rate sects that were dominated by female cultivators. It was ranked 35th among the 72 mysterious sects. His sect was located on top of a gigantic ice river. The enormous ancient city seemed to have been carved out of wind and snow. It was sparkling and translucent, yet there was no lack of grandeur and grandeur. It was as if one had entered a primeval miracle. Dense ice and snow elemental energy rendered the place as if it was a boundless divine kingdom of ice and snow. Qin Feng was already familiar with the place. Back then, when he had appeared in the Dragon Gate of the primitive universe, he had disguised himself as the Grand Elder of the profound sect of the Snow region, Ancestor Ice Soul, and blended in to stir up trouble. He had killed Xianling, who was known as the most handsome man in the Qiankuan sect. He had even taken the opportunity to destroy the siege between the Qiankuan sect and the profound sect of the Snow region. Although the profound sect of the Snow region had once been ranked 35th, at that very moment it had declined greatly. When Qin Feng arrived at the profound sect of the Snow region, the entire profound sect of the Snow region looked gloomy. In the cold wind, the profound sect of the Snow region was filled with dead silence and decline. Sir God Han Guang. Qin Feng looked at the scene and there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. According to the information from Xingqian School, at that very moment, the entire profound sect of the Snow region was occupied by an Ice King, Sir God Han Guang. He was an Ice King from the primordial era, an Ice King who was born in an unknown era. Sir God Han Guang belonged to the Diabolism, and he was a king who was born under the rules of Diabolism. However, he wasn't any Diabolism ancestor. He had always kept a low profile, and he was considered quite mysterious in many eras. His most famous story was that he had once assisted the ice-sealing god, and he had almost created the ice-sealing catastrophe. However, as the ice-sealing god was attacked, he had disappeared without a trace. Qin Feng wasn't unfamiliar with the ice-sealing god. He was the god empress of the Ice River era, the younger brother of the Ice River god empress. In the end, the ice-sealing god had died in the hands of Yi Ding. In the end, the one who had benefited was Guan Ruolin, the reincarnation of the ancient god of ice. Of course, Qin Feng had also schemed and pushed for it. In the blink of an eye, Qin Feng had already found the traces of the target. With a flash of his divine thought, Qin Feng felt an extremely boundless aura in a palace deep in the earth's lungs. There was also an unusually erotic aura in the palace. There were many women in the palace, and many of them had already turned into ice-cold corpses. They are in a good mood. Qin Feng smiled coldly. He waved his sleeve. A bolt of colorless lightning passed through the snowstorm and hit the palace. Rumble! The entire palace was reduced to dust by the lightning. In the big hall, there was an evil-looking young man who was entangled with a pair of beautiful legs. Suddenly, his expression changed. The next moment, his naked body was covered with a coat, and he grabbed a beautiful woman and flew into the void. Who are you? Why did you destroy this divine lord's palace without saying a word? He looked at Qin Feng in bewilderment. Qin Feng looked at the woman in the evil-looking blue robe, who was in the arms of the evil-looking young man. Her clothes were in a mess. Goddess of Guanghan. This woman was a peerless beauty, but her pair of beautiful eyes had already lost all of their luster. The woman was the disciple of the king of Snow Region, the acting sect master of Snow Region. It's a pity. Qin Feng shook his head. In terms of talent, the goddess of Guanghan could definitely be called a peerless genius of the Xian sect in the Snow Region. What was even rarer was her peerless appearance. However, it was a pity that she was destroyed in the hands of Sir God Han Guang. In the palace, most of the women were beautiful and they were lucky. However, most of them were naked and their eyes were blank. There was no life in them. It was obvious that after Sir God Han Guang had taken over Snow Region, he had turned it into a palace for his lust. When Sir God Han Guang saw Qin Feng looking at the palace in silence, he creased his eyebrows and there was a flash of viciousness in his eyes. However, he couldn't see through Qin Feng's cultivation at that moment. Hence, he could only smile patiently. Are you also interested in these beauties? If so, I might be able to do my duty as a host. There was a lustful smile in his eyes. Snow Region doesn't have many things, but there are many beauties. There are also many beauties of high quality in my collection. If you like, you can take all of them. Chapter 13:10. You don't know your place. Qin Feng looked at Sir God Han Guang and shook his head faintly. Seemingly sensing Qin Feng's murderous intention, Sir God Han Guang's eyes glowed ferociously. Bam bam! Like a silver bottle exploding, there was an explosion of thunder. The storm was like a waterfall that sealed the universe. The storm sealed the country and the mountains and rivers seemed to be wrapped in silver. Heaven rank rule, 30,000 miles of ice. Looking at the cold light reaching Qin Feng's face, Sir God Han Guang's eyes were filled with pride. Be careful! Beside him, old man Xian Mu's angry roar could be heard. Qin Feng looked at him and smiled faintly. One could see with the naked eye that the cold light in front of his face was like a silver-white flowing light river that was frozen in the void. It was like a beautiful silver-white ribbon that spanned a few hundred feet. This, not only old man Xian Mu. Sir God Han Guang's face instantly turned pale. His face was distorted and he was almost scared silly. He looked at Qin Feng in a daze. A gaze froze on a full-powered sneak attack by a king. How terrifying was that? A great emperor? A great emperor? Sir God Han Guang's soul was shivering and he wanted to slap himself. He had actually sneaked an attack on such a terrifying existence. Looking at the mysterious existence in the black robe, there was coldness in his eyes. He was anxious. Spare, however. He had only uttered one word when his divinity exploded like a high-temperature porcelain. A flowing light flew out and soared into the sky. The next moment, it disappeared into the depths of the void. Looking at the scene, old man Xian Mu and many disciples of Xian's sect in Snow region were dumbfounded. Sir God Han Guang, a famous ancient king, was killed with a glance. Many disciples of the Black sect of Snow region clearly remembered how tyrannical this primordial king was. Many supreme being grand elders of the profound sect of Snow region were killed by this person like slaughtering chickens and dogs, and were sealed in ice. Qin Feng looked indifferent and his eyes locked onto the depths of the void. Rumble! With a wave of his sleeve, the void seemed to explode, and an icy blue light was sucked into his palm. That was the divinity that Sir God Han Guang used to escape. The king-level godhead, the half-solidified godhead, exuded a faint chill, as if it was an ice drill formed by the endless glaciers. So beautiful that it was dazzling. A king's godhead? This time, even the female disciples who had been bullied by Huang Xiaolong and Huang Xiaolong couldn't help but stare blankly at the godhead. Power! At this time, after experiencing such a big change, he finally understood the importance of strength in this chaotic world. Only with strength could he protect himself, his sect, and his family. Without strength, no matter how beautiful she would only become the meat on the chopping block of others. Qin Feng casually stored the godhead into his sovereign space. Such a king-level godhead and the divine soul of a quasi-emperor were the best nourishment for the sovereign god space that was growing stronger day by day. Qin Feng looked at the black sect of Snow Domain, which had been completely destroyed. It was a pity that this sect that had been passed down for countless eras was destroyed in this era. Many female disciples were killed or humiliated. Many powerful cultivators were scattered. Although the black sect of Snow Domain mainly inherited the ice element, it is also a branch of the water element. I can't just let it disappear like this. Since I'm determined to collect the fate, I can't let the extreme North Snow Domain go. But I can't just stay here and rebuild the sect. As he thought to himself, Qin Feng's expression suddenly changed. His gaze swept across somewhere in the depths of the Snow Domain. He felt a weak connection. It was a unique fluctuation that belonged to the demonic path. Fortunately, he was the demon ancestor. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to sense this extremely obscure fluctuation. Qin Feng suddenly remembered that back in the northern spirit domain, in the depths of the West Mountain Snow Domain, he seemed to have casually placed a chess piece. His expression changed slightly, and he grabbed with his hand. Rumble! It was as if he had grabbed through space. 100,000 meters away. In an extremely ordinary-looking ice mountain, the expression of a white-haired goddess changed slightly. She had the power of a lesser celestial realm cultivator. A huge hand seemed to reach out from the depths of the sky and suddenly grab the woman. Rumble! It retracted into the sky. In the sky above the Xian sect of the Snow Domain, Qin Feng opened his palm, and a thumb-sized white-haired person appeared in his palm. This was the great Emperor Realm's use of space and time, controlling the speed of China. Looking at the boundlessly terrifying huge face, the white-haired woman's face turned pale. What was going on? They were hundreds of thousands of meters away, and he had grabbed her with one hand? She was still in extreme shock and fear. Seeing the white-haired woman's terrified expression, Qin Feng waved his sleeve. The white-haired woman suddenly rolled out of his palm, and the space in the void expanded, and she instantly returned to her original form. Looking around, her gaze instantly fell on the dilapidated palace, and the many disciples of the Xian sect of the Snow Domain who were in tatters. A hint of anger flashed in her eyes. The white-haired woman looked at the black-robed young man who was hundreds of meters away. The more she looked, the more familiar he seemed. After a while, a hint of shock flashed in her eyes. "It's you." The white-haired woman had a deep impression of the black-robed man. In the past, she had met this mysterious black-robed man in the depths of the 100,000 Snow Mountain in the northern spiritual region. At that time, this person had tried to kill a rank 9 ice-type holy son of the Chishu sect, a branch of the Xian sect of the Snow Domain. She had been stopped by him, and she had been defeated. She had been mentally prepared to be killed by this person, but she did not expect that this person would not kill her. Instead, he had taught her a supreme ice-type technique. The master of the underworld king, Su Yi. Qin Feng laughed as he stared at this white-haired woman whom he met again. Qin Feng still had some impression of this woman, especially her disciple, Su Yi, who was one of the famous ice-type kings in the future. She was not an ordinary king, but one of the divine kings who would be born in the future. Back then, it was because of this relationship that he had let this woman go, and also taught her one of the 10 branches of the Demon Tao, the Moon Frost Demonic Sutra. Back then, he had thought highly of this woman, but now Qin Feng did not care about her. She was just a king. Right now, he truly did not place a mere god-king in his eyes. But maybe he could take her into the divine system. Qin Feng's gaze landed on this woman as he faintly spoke. "I'll leave the Xian sect of the Snow Domain to you. You should know what to do. If the Xian sect of the Snow Domain cannot take over the extreme north snow region, you can go to the Xingqian school to help. You just have to take this token and tell them that this is the will of the token's owner. They will help you." "Why do you want to help us?" After taking the token that Qin Feng threw to her, the white-haired woman was slightly stunned. She looked at Qin Feng for a moment. One had to know that the Xian sect of the Snow Domain was in shambles and had no value at all. In the depths of the Xian sect of the Snow Domain, many ancient ice demons had appeared and occupied mountains. Although the Xian sect of the Snow Domain was the overlord of the extreme north snow region, it was only in name. "Why? This is very simple." Qin Feng smiled faintly. "Because I am a water-type cultivator, the only future master of the water-type sects. The extreme north snow region is one of the main regions of the water-type spiritual region. I will not let it go." The white-haired woman was silent, but she also understood. As a disciple of the Xian sect of the Snow Domain, one of the 72 mysterious sects, she was familiar with the mystery of fate. If you want to fight for the deity position, you must fight for fate. Fate from all the veins in the world scattered. It could be in the sect, or in the various clans, or in the body of an expert. If you want to fight for the deity position, you must collect the scattered fate. Only then can you return the power to yourself. Since ancient times, many peerless experts had built dynasties, sects, and families. There was no other reason other than this. From now on, the Xian sect of the Snow Domain is willing to follow your lead. Chapter 13:11. After he killed Sir God Han Guang. As the Xian sect of Snow Region was willing to pay tribute to him and consecrate the fate of the water vein, Qin Feng took the opportunity to wipe out the awakened ancient beasts and experts in the extreme north snow region. He locked up many ancient beasts and made them the guardian beasts of the Xian sect of Snow Region. After he did that, he left when he saw that the Xian sect of Snow Region was no longer a threat. In Qin Feng's opinion, it might be a blessing for the goddess of Moon Frost and the others after they went through such a disaster. Although the Moon Frost Demon scripture was a supreme skill of the Ice and Snow series, it emphasized on entering the way with emotions. If one was pure, one's cultivation would be slow. After going through such a huge change, one would be filled with hatred. It would be more beneficial for cultivating the demon scripture. Without hatred, how could one break through the 7 emotions and 6 desires and condense a vast freedom heavenly demon heart? Northern Spirit Region. After leaving the extreme North Snow region, Qin Feng went along the border between the northern spirit region and the 100,000 Snow Mountain. He took a detour and arrived at the northern spirit region. As he entered the northern spirit region, Qin Feng felt a strange power entering his body from the depths of the earth. He seemed to be the supreme ruler of the spirit region. It was a feeling that he was familiar with. In Faerun World, after he had completely controlled the will of heaven and earth, the feeling was the same. Qin Feng's eyes were bright. He naturally came to the northern spirit region for no one else but the ninth evil ancestor. The northern spirit region was his most trusted place. His family, or even half of his headquarters, was there. He definitely couldn't lose this place. The sudden appearance of the ninth evil ancestor was a time bomb in the northern spirit region. Although the ninth evil ancestor seemed to be well behaved and seemed to be friendly to him intentionally or unintentionally, he had to figure out the evil ancestor's intention to prevent a disaster. He moved his palm and there was a huge shadow of a continent on his palm. Billions of people were seeking personal gains. Old man Xian Mu didn't say a word. He followed Qin Feng from the extreme north snow region. Although he knew that Qin Feng wasn't going to the Hunyuan spiritual region, he didn't dare to complain. When they saw the terrifying scene on the floating continent, they began to tremble, and fear seeped into their bones. At the same time, when Qin Feng was mobilizing the northern spirit region, within the 100,000 snowy mountains, within the West Radiance Peak, within the underground palace beneath Iron Mountain City, the ancient skeleton king raised its head from its throne, and a strand of blazing white flames blazed within its eye sockets. Demon Ancestor, you are finally here. At this time, countless blazing white flames were burning on his body. His skeletal body was covered in flesh and blood, and a heart full of blazing white flames was born on his chest. The skeleton on the throne was Demon Emperor to heaven and Hell God to the bone. Spiritual region was to heaven to the bone. At this moment, a figure seemed to have walked out from the depths of time and space in the underground palace. God Tian Ming, spiritual demon mountain, spiritual blood demon, spiritual demon to the ninth evil ancestor. There was a strange look in his eyes. The ninth evil ancestor could be said to be the combination of the evil path and the Deshang. The evil path had existed since the primordial evil ancestor was born. Many powerful evil gods that wreaked havoc in the world were born among them. However, the evil ancestors were very rare. Every evil ancestor had earth-shattering comprehension and attainments in the evil path. This was especially true for the last evil ancestor, the ninth evil ancestor. He was said to be a peerless existence with the highest chance of becoming the next evil emperor. However, Qin Feng had already comprehended the truth and falsehood of the ninth evil ancestor. Although he was at the King Realm and was at the peak of the King Realm, he was still far from a quasi-emperor. Qin Feng was a little disappointed. It is an honor to have a distinguished guest. The ninth evil ancestor tried his best to maintain his state of mind. He had been waiting for Qin Feng to come, but when he saw the black-robed figure, he couldn't help but tremble from the bottom of his heart. That aura was too powerful. It was as if even the slightest leak could cause him, the evil ancestor, to be destroyed. Some obscure feelings in his heart unconsciously dissipated. He suddenly became very respectful. Being an ancient figure, he also had pride in his heart. However, on the continent, the strong preyed on the weak. It was the supreme law. The ninth evil ancestor didn't dare to be arrogant. Lord Evil Ancestor, you are too polite. I have yet to thank Lord Evil Ancestor for supporting the northern spiritual region. If it wasn't for Lord Evil Ancestor, the northern spiritual region would probably— When Qin Feng said this, he could not help but laugh. The ninth evil ancestor smiled bitterly and shook his head. Heavenly King, you must be joking. This is because you are unwilling to reveal your identity. If you are willing to reveal your cultivation and say it directly, I am afraid that no one in this world would dare to behave atrociously in your dojo. The ninth evil ancestor didn't mean to flatter him. Although he was only at the peak of the king realm, the ninth evil ancestor was experienced and knowledgeable. Qin Feng's aura was definitely not that of an ordinary quasi-emperor. Even if he wasn't a great emperor, he was definitely at the peak of a quasi-emperor. In the past, not to mention a quasi-emperor, even if a king was born, he would be able to move unhindered for an era. As for quasi-emperors, they could only be born in those strong eras and coincidences. Similar to the current era, the birth of so many kings was absolutely unimaginable. Only the first era of the ancient era and the previous few eras of the ancient era had such a grand occasion. Naturally, the weight of a quasi-emperor was very heavy. One could imagine, especially when Qin Feng participated in the obstruction of the Sky River evil ancestor some time ago and personally defeated the Sky River evil ancestor who was close to the peak of a quasi-emperor. Qin Feng smiled and didn't comment. His gaze fell on the ninth evil ancestor. His gaze seemed to see through the deepest thoughts of the ninth evil ancestor. Lord Evil Ancestor, you seem to know that I would definitely come? The ninth evil ancestor's eyes flickered with eagerness as he smiled at Qin Feng. Actually, the Heavenly King and I have met a few times. Back then, when the Heavenly King went to the Bailing sect to spread the demon Tao, I had seen the Heavenly King in action. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Back then, he went to the Bailing sect of the East Radiance Peak to look for Qin Tianhe in order to obtain the number 1 water-type technique, the Sky River Righteous technique. When he passed by the Shihua Peak, he casually set up a few chess pieces. He also passed on a few demonic veins. He didn't expect that all of it would fall into the eyes of the evil ancestor. At this moment, the ninth evil ancestor spoke with a sincere expression. Heavenly King, actually, I have been quite curious about the mysteries of the demon Tao all these years. Over the years, I have also looked for the City Lord of Wushang, the Blood Sea Sect Master, and the Heavenly Lord of Numinous Treasure to discuss the mysteries of the demon Tao. However, I have very little knowledge and have many doubts. I wonder if the demon ancestor can solve my doubts for me? After saying that, the ninth evil ancestor bowed deeply to Qin Feng. Evil ancestor, are you going to join the demon Tao? There was a strange look in Qin Feng's eyes. He felt a little strange. He naturally welcomed an old antique like the ninth evil ancestor to join the demon Tao. Every time the demon Tao converted a genius or prodigy into the demon Tao's providence would increase by a portion. If he could lead some experts to join the demon Tao would prosper, and Qin Feng, the demon lord, would naturally receive countless blessings from providence. If a figure like the ninth evil ancestor joined the demon Tao and became the new demon ancestor, it would be even more amazing. It would be extremely beneficial for his advancement to become a lord. If the ninth evil ancestor brought the entire demon Tao's laws to join the demon Tao's laws might be able to reach the heavens in a single step. It would be equivalent to directly swallowing a portion of the demon Tao's laws and saving countless time to spread. However, Qin Feng didn't quite understand. The ninth evil ancestor didn't comprehend the demon Tao's laws and actually wanted to turn into a demon Tao. Wasn't that a little unbelievable? In fact, Qin Feng didn't know the pain in the ninth evil ancestor's heart. Although the demon Tao's laws were extremely powerful, they were sealed one by one after the many evil gods wreaking havoc in the world. As the evil ancestor, even if he had the blessings of the demon Tao's providence, he might be able to do something. However, to attain the Tao of a lord was practically a pipe dream. Taking a step back, even attaining the Tao and becoming a god would be quite difficult. One would have to spend a lot of effort to integrate the many evil gods of the demon Tao before there was even a slight possibility. However, the demon Tao was different. Compared to the demon Tao that was on the decline and had no path forward, the demon Tao was full of vitality and was currently exerting its strength. Its potential was extremely great. Chapter 13:12 Tianliang Spiritual Region, Star Trace City. This was originally the location of the Tianliang sect. Following the merger of the Sun Moon Sword sect and the Tianliang sect, this place became the headquarters of the new primordial Xingqian school. Beside this city were 13 other ancient cities, like stars surrounding the moon. In the center of the 14 cities was a huge sinkhole. It was called the Crater of Meteorites. Rumor had it that the Crater of Meteorites led to an unknown and dangerous forbidden area. Every year, many disciples of the Tianliang sect would die in the adventure of the forbidden area. However, there were also many disciples who obtained some extremely precious treasures in the Crater of Meteorite. In one leap, they became the most important people in the sect. On the side of Star Trace City, near the Crater of Meteorites, one could see the Crater of Meteorites shrouded in clouds and fog. Dense starlight fell from the sky. The starlight around the Crater of Meteorites was so dense that it almost materialized. On the city wall, two figures looked at the vast sea of clouds under the hazy starlight. They were two ancient boundary emperors. Moreover, they were not ordinary boundary emperors. They were a couple, King Tianliang and the Yaoguang Saintess. King Tianliang had a strange origin. He was the founder of the Tianliang sect, which was a branch of the primordial Xingqian school. He was a true peerless prodigy of the ancient era. After leaving the primordial Xingqian school, he single-handedly established the huge foundation of the Tianliang sect, which became a legend for a time. He was also a legendary figure. The other female boundary emperor also had an extraordinary origin. She was one of the founders of the Sun Moon Sword sect. The most legendary thing was that she and King Tianliang were a couple. Moreover, they also had other fortuitous encounters. After many eras, they became boundary emperors. You seem a little uneasy? The Yaoguang Saintess looked at King Tianliang, who was close to her. The two of them were both boundary emperors born from the star path. They came from the same lineage and had cultivated together for many years. They were almost telepathic. The Yaoguang Saintess keenly sensed a trace of irritation and uneasiness in King Tianliang's heart. She smiled sweetly. Actually, you don't have to worry. When the Hunyuan Xingqian school disintegrated, you and I have experienced countless life and death separations. Along the way, we faced the tribulation of becoming a king, the establishment of a sect, the suppression of the gods, the covetous eyes of several ancient emperors, countless eras of struggling on the verge of becoming a quasi-emperor, facing the exhaustion of our lifespan, and the 5 decays of heaven and man. You and I have survived, so why worry about a mere Hunyuan sect? The Yaoguang Saintess really didn't understand. Furthermore, both of them had attained the quasi-emperor realm. Apart from the few peak primordial quasi-emperors in the depths of the 72 mysterious sects, no one else in the world could threaten the new primordial chaos Xingqian school. Did King Tianliang need to be so worried about the Hunyuan sect? Yao Guang, you should know that my natal star is the Tianliang star of the ancient prime star. This star is best at predicting the future. King Tianliang was grim as he gazed at the vast mist above the crater. Recently, the Tianliang star's source has been trembling violently. I'm afraid it's not a good sign. King Tianliang's eyes were filled with a kind of seriousness that could not be dispersed. Is there really an expert in the Hunyuan sect who can threaten you and me? The Yaoguang Saintess' expression changed slightly. After so many epochs of life and death together, she naturally knew the abilities of King Tianliang's natal star. Since it was the Tianliang star's warning, it definitely couldn't be wrong. The Hunyuan sect? After pondering for a moment, King Tianliang shook his head. You and I have long figured out the background of the Hunyuan sect. This sect was originally founded by that guy from the Hunyuan Xingqian school. He, Yu, Mi, Beidou, and Gaochen were known as the Hunyuan 5 disciples in the Hunyuan Xingchen school. They were known as the 5 strongest Star Lords in the history of the Hunyuan Xingchen school. At that time, Purple Star Lord happened to wake up again. The Hunyuan Xingchen school was harmed by Purple Star Lord. That guy wanted to rob you and me of our natal stars. We had no choice but to fight with all our might. In the end, the Hunyuan Xingchen school was torn apart. You and a few other supreme elders of the Hunyuan Xingchen school, who ran away, founded the Sun Moon Sword sect. I founded the Tianliang sect. Beidou and Gaochen were foolishly loyal. They followed Purple Star Lord and founded the Xingchen school. The Hunyuan sect was founded by Purple Star Lord. In the past, we, the Hunyuan 5 disciples, founded the 4 sects separately. At that time, it was a much-told story among the sects. However, you and I both know the real situation of the Hunyuan sect. That guy from the Purple Star Lord was very lucky. In that era, he obtained the position of the Sun God and became the Star God of the Purple Star Lord. He had already transcended. Although the Hunyuan sect has produced many experts in the past generations, 1 or 2 of them have become kings. Their true bodies have not been destroyed after hundreds of eras. However, they are still far inferior to you and me. I'm afraid they are no match for you. Then why do you feel uneasy? Yao Guang Holy Girl frowned. You forgot that the Hunyuan sect seems to have sent many messengers to ask for help. I'm afraid new problems have arisen. King Tianliang looked worried. This feeling of uneasiness made him restless day and night. Senior brother, don't worry too much. The warning of the Tianliang star is indeed worthy of vigilance. However, you don't need to worry too much. The Tianliang star has also acted strangely in the past. Didn't you and I successfully pass through it? After saying that, a trace of pride flashed across the Yao Guang Holy Girl's beautiful face. Moreover, at our level, how many people in the world can be a match for you and me? Now, the most important thing for us is to integrate the fate of the Star God lineage. Only with enough fate can you take another step forward and break through to the Emperor realm. Hearing the Yao Guang Holy Girl's words, King Tianliang's divine body shook and the depression in his heart instantly dissipated. Divine light trembled in his eyes and countless divine rings revolved around him. The Yao Guang Holy Girl was right. No matter what, he had to obtain the fate of the Star God lineage. Seeing King Tianliang's former majesty and domineering aura reappear, the Yao Guang Holy Girl smiled and said, "Now, the situation of my Hunyuan Xingchen school is very good. After the experts of the Hunyuan sect were suppressed by you and me, my Hunyuan Xingchen school has already occupied most of the territory in the Hunyuan spiritual realm. There are only a few places left in the Hunyuan spiritual realm. We only need to slowly digest and absorb them to completely engulf the Hunyuan spiritual realm. Next, among the scattered branches of the Hunyuan Xingchen school in the past, only the Xingchen school is left. After defeating and engulfing the Xingchen school, you will definitely become a great emperor." Shihua Peak, in the underground Devil Palace. 2 dense devil lights appeared in the underground palace. In the depths of the Devil Palace, there were 2 existences with their eyes closed. The devil lights above their heads first revealed their understanding of the Devil Tao. The essence of the Devil Tao transformed into pure devil clouds that collided and communicated with each other. The sound of the devil was faint, and it evolved into many heavenly devil extreme bliss. There were even heavenly devils rampaging. All kinds of supreme heavenly devil principles manifested and transformed into supreme devil lotuses that bloomed everywhere in the Devil Palace. On the throne in the center of the Devil Palace, a white-robed scholar surged with pure devil chi and transformed into a giant devil Tao Dharma idol. It had 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. The giant devil Tao Dharma idol was extremely terrifying. On the side, a black-robed man clapped his hands and laughed. "Wonderful, wonderful! as expected of the third devil master of the devil Tao. Chapter 13:13. Inside the Devil Palace, Qin Feng closed his eyes. In his eyes, the dense evil path's providence melted and turned into demonic path's providence. Like a torrent, part of it gathered above his head, while the other part rushed into the depths of the void. That was where the second demonic ancestor, the firmament demonic master, was. That majestic providence was shocking. Next, a small part of it entered the ninth demonic ancestor's head. No, it should be the third demonic ancestor. After receiving Qin Feng's demonic path's true inheritance, in addition to the demonic path's primogenitor law seed, the ninth demonic ancestor had become a demonic ancestor. As long as he could nurture his own unique demonic ancestor law like the second demonic ancestor, he could truly become the third demonic ancestor. Among the three demonic ancestors, in terms of demonic path's providence, Qin Feng, the first demonic ancestor, had the most providence. Next was the second demonic ancestor, the firmament demonic master Duan Shaolu. Next was the third demonic ancestor. At the side of the Devil Palace, Qin Feng closed his eyes as dense providence rolled. He could already see the various providences gathering above his head. The providences seemed to have formed a huge boundless world above his head. It was a huge world transformed from the Master God space. A lot of luck appeared above Qin Feng's head and turned into several streams. The most powerful one was the water vein providence. It was the providence gathered by the water veins of the heavens for him. It was so huge that it was like a heavenly divine river that rumbled and surged. Next was the demonic path's providence. After the demonic path's providence was merged with the demonic path's providence represented by the third demonic ancestor, it became abnormally majestic and active. The demonic path's providence was similar to the martial path's providence, demonic path's providence, shaman path's providence, and other great path's providence. This great path's providence was the most mysterious. It was not like ordinary providence. For example, the star path's providence and the water veins providence could not be converted into each other. The star path's providence could only be used to attack the star path's providence. It was the same for the water veins providence. There was a clear distinction between them. Strictly speaking, these two providences were both branches of martial providence. The demonic path's destiny was different. It was the same as the martial path's destiny. It belonged to a higher level of destiny. It had a unique characteristic that the branch destinies did not have. It could be easily converted into any type of fate energy. For example, if Qin Feng needed it, he could convert the fate of demon doctrine into the fate of lineage of star or the fate of water lineage of star to help him break through the innate God position of origin. To be honest, Qin Feng valued this streak of providence very much. Now, the size of this streak of providence had almost caught up to the water veins providence. This was rather frightening. Qin Feng knew better than anyone how powerful the water meridian fortune around him was. As the water vein dragon ancestor, he controlled more than 10% of the Five Seas Dragon Clan's providence. 10% of the luck of the dragon tribe of the Five Seas might not seem like a lot, but in reality, the dragon tribe of the Five Seas occupied an extremely large territory. The richness of the luck of their water veins was definitely greater than any of the top 10 sects of the 72 mysterious sects combined. What a terrifying amount of luck energy that was! With its help, Qin Feng basically did not need to work hard to collect the luck energy to prove his Tao position of God. There was also a portion of the innate luck energy that the 9 great innate primordial waters carried after being refined. Although Qin Feng had only completely obtained one of the 9 types of innate primordial waters, which was the 9 nether primordial water, and only comprehended a portion of the other 8 types of innate primordial waters, the luck energy that he obtained was incomplete, but it was still rather impressive. These were the 2 biggest sources of the water meridian fortune in Qin Feng's body. This enormous amount of luck energy was comparable to the combined luck of 2 of the 72 mysterious sections. It was really shocking that the demonic path's luck energy could be compared to the water vein's luck energy in such a short period of time. This meant that if this strand of fate entered any of the bloodlines, it would be able to help Qin Feng break through to the innate origin divine seat of any of the bloodlines. As for the other 2 streaks of luck energy, they were the star god's luck energy and the space lineage's luck energy. The main source of the star god lineage's luck energy came from the disciples of the Xingqian school who cultivated the star god cultivation method. Compared to the thick water vein, demonic vein, and star god lineage, the luck energy of the space lineage was abnormally thin. Other than that, there were also a few other peculiar luck energies. One of them came from the dream realm. The dream realm contained the dreams of all living beings, evolved all living beings, tested the martial path, and gathered a lot of martial path luck energy. This luck energy was very impressive. As the power of the dream realm gradually extended and enveloped the star domain, the longevity spirit domain, and the extreme north snow region, the luck energy was increasing, providing Qin Feng with a luck energy that was not inferior to the demonic paths. Other than that, after refining the northern spirit domain, Qin Feng would become the northern spirit Saint Emperor, and he would be able to enjoy a portion of the luck energy that came with the position of northern spirit Saint Emperor. This luck energy was also very large. Although it was not as large as the luck energy obtained after the Dream Realm's evolution, it was still far stronger than the luck energy formed by the star god lineage. Other than that, there were several other powers that came from the depths of space and time, forming the creator space that was formed by the divine light above his head. Several luck energies gathered above his head, forming a huge world. This was the creator space. It evolved the many mysteries of the creator space. An endless stream of world origin force flowed from the White Snake world, the ancient land, the Star River continent, and Faerun world into the creator space. That was the world origin force of several huge worlds. The creator space slowly received the nourishment of these huge worlds' world origin force. At the same time, it did not harm these worlds, but adopted a win-win model, benefiting each other. It became the link between these worlds. At the same time, several luck energies entered the depths of the creator space, and in the Pantheon Palace in the depths of the creator space, evolved a hazy corner of an unbelievable deity position. That was the deity position. When this deity position could be fully evolved, it would mean that Qin Feng's accumulation of luck energy to become a deity was complete. This deity position was inextricably linked with the world origin force of the Spirit Sea realm, and it could not be severed. This showed that this deity position was born from the Spirit Sea realm. Of course, only a world with such a huge foundation like the Spirit Sea realm had the ability to give birth to a deity position. With such a huge foundation, Qin Feng could already see the hazy corner of the deity position. It could be said that he was ahead of many of the ancient antiques that had awakened in the Spirit Sea realm. While the third demon ancestor was still in seclusion to comprehend the mysteries of the demon path, Qin Feng had already left the northern spiritual region. Along with him was Elder Xian Mu, who had been in a daze for a long time in the northern spiritual region. After being suddenly left behind by Qin Feng, this Hunyuan sect envoy was in a mess for a long time. When Qin Feng appeared in front of him again, he finally found his backbone. The two of them went straight to the Hunyuan spiritual region. After eliminating the hidden dangers around the realm of stars, Qin Feng could finally free up his hands to deal with Hunyuan Xingqian school. This time, he wanted to gather the star god bloodline's luck in one fell swoop, and take another step on his path to becoming a deity. Chapter 13-14 Primordial Chaos, Spiritual Realm. Primordial Chaos, Limitless Mountain. This was where the Primordial Chaos sect, the overlord of the Primordial Chaos spiritual realm, was located. The mountain was majestic and majestic. As the Spirit Sea realm reconstructed the ancient scenery, the mountains here changed greatly. It was like an ancient divine mountain with heavy essence energy. The mountains were steep, clouds lingered, and the trees were lush. The primitive forest was like the ancient times before the wilderness was established. The divine trees emitted divine light and were indescribably beautiful. However, when Qin Feng and Elder Xian Mu arrived, the place was already filled with the new primordial chaos Xingqian school disciples. Good place. Above the clouds were dim. Looking down, Qin Feng's gaze fell on the majestic mountain peak below. Such a beautiful ancient mountain was truly rare. Deep in the ground, there was a huge sacred spirit vein that continuously swallowed the essence energy of hundreds of thousands of miles. Cultivating in such a blessed land was undoubtedly twice the result with half the effort. One day was comparable to a month for others. Sacred spirit veins were extremely rare. Although with the arrival of the Golden Era, the spirit qi reshaped the mountains and rivers, and many spirit veins recovered. There were even rumors that even rarer ancestral veins appeared in the 9 divine lands. But sacred spirit veins were already rare. Among the many spiritual realms, only a portion of them had such a sacred spirit vein. Among the many spiritual realms around the realm of stars, only the wild new district of the realm of stars had such a sacred spirit vein. Ancestors, Xian Mu is ashamed to face you. Elder Xian Mu's face turned pale. Senior brothers and sisters, Xian Mu is ashamed to face you. Elder Xian Mu's eyes gradually turned red, and a trace of madness appeared. His figure moved, and he was about to rush down and kill the primordial Xingqian school disciples who occupied the primordial chaos limitless mountain. Calm down, Qin Feng said with a cold expression. As soon as he opened his mouth, Elder Xian Mu's pouncing figure froze in the air. Xingqian school master, you. Elder Xian Mu looked at Qin Feng angrily. There was resentment in his eyes. If not for this person deliberately delaying, the primordial chaos sect might not have been destroyed. What's the hurry? Qin Feng saw old man Xian Mu's expression and smiled. Isn't it just a few people who died? With me here, even if their souls are destroyed, it's not impossible for me to revive them. Resurrected from the dead. Old man Xian Mu's crazed and resentful expression disappeared in an instant. He looked at Qin Feng with a hopeful gaze. Sect Master, are you serious? Of course I'm serious. However, I won't do it for free. You don't have that much face in front of me. Qin Feng stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression indifferent. He was capable of reviving someone from the dead. However, Qin Feng was still unable to do anything for the people whose souls had been scattered. Unless he could sever the 3 lives, grasp the space-time power of the past, present, and future, pierce through the space-time of the past, and grab the dead from the river of time. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible. With that said, Qin Feng did not care about Elder Xian Mu's expression. He grabbed this person and flew straight to Tianliang's spirit region. Since they had decided to unify the star god bloodline, it was best to capture the ringleader first. King Tianliang and Yaoguang Saintus, the peerless experts of the Star Dao. These two were also very famous in the future. They were one of the few boundary emperors of the star god bloodline in the Golden Age. However, they were only boundary emperors. Compared to the few great emperors born in the Golden Age, they were just background characters. In the future, Xingqian school fell apart. Many experts believed that the direct cause of Xingqian school's destruction was most likely these 2 boundary emperors. Hunyuan's spirit region was adjacent to Tianliang's spirit region and Sun Moon's spirit region. The journey was not far. From afar, Qin Feng saw Star Trace City lying on the ground like a huge monster. Qin Feng did not hide his extremely powerful aura. In the distance, many experts in Star Trace City raised their heads and looked outside Star Trace City. Their expressions changed greatly, their faces full of shock. So powerful! In the city, King Tianliang and Yaoguang Saintis suddenly flashed out of the mansion and appeared on the city wall. They looked at the thick clouds outside Star Trace City as if they were facing a great enemy. In the senses of many Star Trace City experts, a faintly discernible and terrifying aura slowly came from the clouds hundreds of miles outside Star Trace City. Dong dong dong! The light footsteps, accompanied by the aura, were like terrifying savage beasts trampling on the ground. The terrifying aura did not seem to be stepping on the ground, but in the hearts of everyone. Expert! It was definitely a terrifying expert. Extremely powerful auras appeared on the city gate as they looked at the depths of the clouds outside Star Trace City in horror. In the clouds, two figures walked out one after another. The person in the lead was about 24 or 25 years old. He was dressed in a black robe with wide sleeves that fluttered in the wind. His pitch-black hair, like a waterfall, reached his waist and seemed to emit a dark luster as it danced behind his shoulders. When he appeared, above Star Trace City, King Tianliang, Yaoguang Saintis, and even a few kings of Xingqian School suddenly looked at him. Compared to the aura that occasionally leaked out from this black-robed man, the aura of a peak middle heaven-level expert from the old man behind him was almost negligible. He was definitely not an ordinary expert. The kings of the primal chaos star sect only scanned the area with their spiritual force, and their hearts almost exploded from fright. Poochie poochie poochie. It was an aura that was as deep as the abyss. Bang bang bang. Bloody light exploded. The bodies of several terrifying kings instantly exploded. On the side, many Star Trace City experts looked at this scene in horror. In the bloody light, the bodies of several kings were regenerating, but their faces were still pale. They looked at the black-robed man outside Star Trace City with ashen faces. Just a glance with divine consciousness and their divine bodies exploded. How terrifying was that black-robed man! Many ancient antiques felt their bodies turn cold. Was this person an enemy or a friend? If he was an enemy? The few kings who had exploded their bodies had bitter expressions. Quasi-emperor? Great emperor? King Tianliang and Yaoguang Saintis looked solemn. Witnessing several kings explode with their own eyes, the two of them felt their hearts sink. However, their guesses were more inclined to believe that this person was an expert. Great emperors were too rare. Since ancient times, even during the primordial age, it was rare to see a great emperor appear. Junior sister, I'm afraid this person has come with ill intentions. King Tianliang's expression was solemn. When King Tianliang saw this person, the uneasiness and worry that had been hidden in the depths of his heart for a long time suddenly emerged and became extremely intense. This made him feel as if he was facing a great enemy. Dark clouds covered the sky. This was definitely not an auspicious sign. Yaoguang Saintis glanced at King Tianliang. Seeing King Tianliang's expression, she frowned slightly and felt somewhat dissatisfied. Senior brother, what are you worried about? He's just a quasi-emperor. You and I are both high-level quasi-emperors. Why should we be afraid of him? Her expression was cold and arrogant as she transmitted her voice coldly. If this person is a friend of our primordial chaos Xingqian School, then so be it. If he's an enemy, then today, Star Trace City will be his burial ground. It just so happens that the two of us need to kill a strong enemy to establish our reputation and deter other restless forces. I think this person is the most suitable. Chapter 13-15. Who are you? Stop. From afar, above the city walls of Star Trace City, an ancient expert shouted furiously. At this moment, someone on the city walls also shouted. Honored guests have arrived, so we should open the city gates and welcome them from 800 miles away. However, I don't know if you are an enemy or a friend. Please tell us your intentions. This time, it was a gentle female voice that was neither humble nor arrogant. Qin Feng stopped in the clouds. He raised his head and looked indifferently at the two quasi-emperor-level auras above Star Trace City. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "I heard that the Sun-Moon Sword sect and the Tianliang sect merged into one. They are very powerful and can be said to be one of the top sects in the Star God lineage. I didn't expect them to be so petty today. Honored guests have arrived, but they refused to let them in." The cold voice seemed to penetrate the fog and reach the city walls clearly. On the city walls, many primordial chaos Xingqian school experts were slightly restless. On the city wall, the Yaoguang holy daughter had a cold look in her eyes. Her expression was cold. "You must be joking. Primordial Chaos Xingqian School naturally has to treat guests with the highest courtesy. However, I'm afraid you may not be a guest. Alcade Holy Maiden, one of the Primordial Chaos 5 of the Primordial Xingqian School, and King Tianliang, the two of you from the Primordial Xingqian School are still alive." Qin Feng smiled. "This is really a blessing for the Star God lineage. You know us." The Alcade Holy Maiden and King Tianliang's expressions changed slightly. Their expressions became serious. Qin Feng killed the Crepe Star Sovereign and obtained his godhead. Naturally, he knew a lot about the Crepe Star Sovereign. The Primordial Chaos 5 were the Tianfu Star Sovereign, the Tianliang Star Sovereign, the Alcade Star Sovereign, the Big Dipper Star Sovereign, and the Gauchan Star Sovereign. They were the 5 strongest star sovereigns before the Primordial Xingqian School disintegrated. In ancient times, the disintegration of the Primordial Xingqian School was closely related to the Primordial Chaos 5. The biggest culprit was still Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. Ever since the Ziwei era passed, he had been persevering in searching for the reincarnated powerhouses of the constellations. For countless eras, countless geniuses of the immemorial Xingqian school who had been reincarnated from the constellations had been seized by him to use as a cultivation and life-prolonging item. In that generation, many star lords descended into the world. Among the many star monarchs of primordial Xingqian school, the most outstanding were the primordial 5 disciples. Naturally, Myrtle Star Starlord targeted the primordial Chaos 5. After plundering the origins of the other Star Lords, he finally set his sights on the 5 Star Lords. Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle was the crown prince of the Crepe Myrtle Empire. He was also a formidable character. He didn't immediately devour the 5 of them. Instead, he used a scheme to subdue Star Monarch Big Dipper and Star Monarch North Star. It was just that Crepe Myrtle Star's journey had been smooth sailing, but this time, he had misjudged. His actions had long been seen through by others. The one who saw through his secret was none other than that generation's Primordial Xingqian School's headmaster. The Primordial Xingqian School's headmaster was still in the God realm. In the past, the headmaster had pretended to be some system grandpa and was personally captured by Qin Feng. Now, Qin Feng had reconstructed his true body not long ago. He had already been sent to the Star River continent to join the Khanate Star Ancestors sect and help build a Stargate in the foreign realm. After being seen through by the Primordial Xingqian School's headmaster, the last headmaster had privately warned the Primordial 5 disciples. The last headmaster originally had good intentions and wanted to avoid losses. Unexpectedly, the shrewish Alcade Saintess was the first to lose her temper and directly announced this matter to the public. This caused a huge uproar in the sect. Internal strife soon erupted. After the internal strife, the entire Primordial Xingqian school was torn apart. Crepe Myrtle Star did not gain any benefits from this internal strife. In the end, he had no choice but to hibernate in a remote place like the realm of stars with Big Dipper, Gauchan, and some elders. Among them, Big Dipper and Gauchan gathered the remaining elders and established the Xingqian school. After the establishment of the sect, Star Lord Gauchan was seriously injured in a battle. Not long after, he sealed himself to recuperate. In the next few eras, he came out and finally became a star god. Star Lord Gauchen called himself the Star Ancestor and became the Grandmaster of Xingqian School in name. In that era, he successfully became the Khanate Star God of Big Dipper. Who are you? Alcade Saintus looked at Qin Feng with a sharp gaze. The primordial 5 disciples were so secretive that only a few people among the old antiques of primordial Xingqian School knew about them. At this moment, a trace of killing intent flashed in her eyes. Qin Feng looked up and smiled. You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that although primordial Xingqian School can unify the star gods, the master will definitely not be the two of you. Arrogant. Alcade Saintus could no longer suppress the anger and killing intent in her heart. Her face flashed with coldness. Today, this Saintus will ask for advice from you. Let's see if you have the right to talk nonsense here. She attacked in anger. The moment she attacked, she used her full strength with hidden killing intent. Boundary Emperor Law, Star God Sealing. As Shao Qin roared, the stars in the sky lit up. Boundless starlight gathered from all directions, forming 365 huge astral divine steels in the starry field around him. On the tablets, huge and emotionless God Sealing eyes appeared. Star God Sealing Technique. In the starry field, Qin Feng looked at the huge God Sealing eyes with a strange light in his eyes. In Xingqian School, there was a heaven-class unique skill called Star God Sealing. After mastering it, one could cultivate 36 Star God Sealing tablets, which were said to be able to seal the gods. In the past, Xingqian School's disciple, Ding Li, used to run amok and relied on this skill to create the 7-kill God Sealing, which made him famous for a time. This Star God Sealing heaven-class law was, in fact, a law born after Desheng's Star God Sealing. God Sealing eyes, which were cold and emotionless like the sky, appeared one after another, as if summoning a trace of the huge will of the endless starry sky. Qin Feng's body did not change. He allowed the God Sealing eyes to appear and seal the endless spacetime around him. Seal! In the starlight, Alcade Saintus looked extremely majestic. She pointed out with her finger, which seemed to be the will of the endless starry sky. Countless God Sealing eyes emitted silver-white strange light. The white light intertwined and formed a huge diamond-shaped area with Qin Feng as the center. This was a huge seal. This was a sealing-type supreme divine ability. Even a quasi-emperor would not be able to escape in a short time after being sealed in it. However, this did not include Qin Feng. Scram! He only spat out a word softly. Crackle! There seemed to be an irresistible force that erupted with the black-robed man as the center. Bang bang bang! The silver-white diamond-shaped sealing power that was sealed by the God Sealing eyes shattered like pieces of glass. It was as if the entire space-time had collapsed because of this word. At this moment, the terrifying force continued to bombard, and the 360 silver-white Star God Sealing tablets seemed to be hit by an extremely terrifying force. Bang bang bang! Amidst the huge explosion, they turned into fragments that filled the sky. The silver-white God Sealing eyes, which were like the heavenly Tao, suddenly exploded. This force hit the Alcade Saintus who was in the void, who was extremely shocked. Crack crack! As if her chest was hit by a giant hammer, the Alcade Saintus's body exploded with the sound of countless bones breaking. Her chest collapsed slightly, and she was blasted out like a cannonball. In less than 2 days since the start of the event, more than 1,000 red packets have been given out. First, congratulations to those who have received red packets. There are still some spots left. Everyone, continue to work hard. Chapter 13-16. Pooh! The Alcade Holy Daughter vomited a mouthful of blood in midair. Scarlet light burst out, specks of bright red. The many Star Trace city experts on the city walls looked at each other in horror. This person knocked back the quasi-emperor level Alcade Holy Daughter with just one sentence. How horrifying was this? Could it be a martial emperor? The Star Trace City experts exchanged glances, horrified by this thought in their minds. Everyone below a martial emperor is an ant. The Alcade Holy Daughter stood with her hands behind her back. Her figure looked like a boundless demonic god, as firm as a mountain. Qin Feng shook his head to himself. A quasi-emperor might be strong, but it was not enough before a martial emperor. A silvery white divine light flashed, and the Alcade Holy Daughter's figure descended into the void. A horrifying silver divine light surged in her eyes like a tide, seemingly shaking the space and time. However, there was a trace of bright red at the corners of her mouth, looking very shocking. Kill. Her fighting spirit soared to the heavens, and her unyielding will shook the sun and the moon. Powerful energy fluctuations swept out from her body like stormy waves. The area within hundreds of thousands of li of Star Trace City shook, as if the earth was shaking. The silver light that bloomed from her body seemed to even suppress the sunlight in the sky. The Alcade Holy Daughter's entire body was encased in silver light, and her figure was like lightning. She instantly arrived above Qin Feng's head. She no longer looked like a person but a burning divine star. The Alcade Holy Daughter blasted out the most origin laws of the 10,000 realms. She wanted to smash Qin Feng into pieces along with the ground. Heavenly Steel Technique, first move, burst. 2 bolts of cold lightning shot out of Xiao Chen's eyes. His 10 fingers intertwined, and a large hand imprint carrying a primal chaos aura blasted out. The large hand imprint shattered the sky, and the horrifying martial emperor laws struck the Alcade Holy Daughter. The Alcade Holy Daughter's incomparably enchanting divine body was immediately blasted away, and her divine soul flew away. This Holy Daughter does not believe that this Holy Daughter, who has cultivated for thousands of epochs and experienced countless life and death situations, will lose to you today. The Alcade Holy Daughter roared, and her divine body rapidly reassembled. This Holy Daughter wants to fight to the death with you. The Big Dipper will live, and the Southern Dipper will die. Life and death of the 2 element stars. As the Holy Daughter roared, a huge astrolabe flew out of her body. The starlight was dazzling, and an extremely powerful mysterious aura of life and death filled the air. The power of millions and millions of stars was stirred up, as if it was going to break apart the sun, moon, and blue dome of heaven. At this moment, ancient experts hidden in various places in the all-heavens raised their heads with astonishment on their faces. There are emperor-level experts fighting? I wonder which 2 ancient venerable emperors are fighting? Could it be a battle of the great Tao? What a terrifying fluctuation! In the various ancient sacred grounds, the supreme experts were either pondering, surprised, or indifferent. Many of them had strange expressions on their faces as they flew towards the battlefield. Starlight shone down from the sky, forming 2 ancient projections of the star fields in Star Trace City. As the astrolabe merged with the star field phantasm, it swept towards Qin Feng. As the black and white star area fused with the life and death power Upanishad appeared, something terrifying seemed to happen. The mysterious starlight swept over 1,000,000 miles. The earth, clouds, cities, and even the sky completely disappeared. Everything was covered by the watery starlight, turning into the chess pieces and chess lines of the star domain chessboard, crisscrossing deep ravines. Qin Feng's expression changed. He wanted to use his supreme power to destroy the chessboard. However, he changed his mind and gave up on this attempt. He allowed his figure to be drowned by the chessboard formed by the star domain. A moment later, he found his figure flashing and appearing in a vast star domain. The ethereal starry sky evolved into a star domain. A huge black and white chessboard seemed to be outlined in the star domain. The black and white pieces intertwined, corresponding to the billions of stars in the starry sky, containing a mighty power that could turn heaven and earth into primordial chaos. In the center, the Chu River was the boundary. Stars appeared one after another, spreading out and appearing on the chessboard. A mighty power swept over. The black and white pieces were distinct. Qin Feng stepped into the void, raised his eyes, and looked at the star domain. His gaze fell on his side. In this huge chessboard, he was holding a black piece. At this time, there were only a few black pieces left on the chessboard, and it looked lifeless. The situation was very bad. The dragon was about to be cut down. The other party had a white piece. The white piece was like a dragon, brimming with vitality and exuding a horrifying exuberance. The situation was like a dragon coiling around a tiger, brimming with killing intent. Xiao Chen was like prey that a hungry tiger had grabbed by the throat. What a dangerous Go game! Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. If it were a regular quasi-emperor, the dragon would have been captured in just one round, and their life force would have been wiped out. At this moment, behind the white chess piece side of the chessboard, a peerless figure appeared. It was the Alcade Holy Daughter. This person looked around the chessboard and fixed her gaze on Qin Feng. A cold, sharp, saber-like killing intent appeared in her eyes. Qin Feng's expression did not change. It was like he did not sense the cold, murderous intent in the other party's eyes. He closed his eyes and sensed the chessboard. After a while, shock flashed in his eyes. This huge Go board was boundless and exceptionally strong. Even a peak quasi-emperor would find it hard to break it. After some thought, Xiao Chen waved his sleeve and suppressed a portion of his strength, using only a tenth of it to strike the Go board. Rumble! It was like an immortal divine rainbow streaking across the vast universe, illuminating billions of stars. Countless stars turned to dust in the divine rainbow. The entire Go board shattered inch by inch. Even the Alcade Holy Daughter's figure shattered into pieces by the boundless force. However, this Go board was truly strange. Although it shattered into dust, it quickly recovered. It was like a clear river of fate flowed through this place. Countless shattered stars were rapidly regenerating under the brilliance of the billions of stars. The Go board was born again. Many black and white Go pieces condensed with the light of billions of stars appeared. Even the Alcade Holy Daughter was reborn from the stars on one side. No matter who you are, since you have fallen into this sage's yin-yang life and death Go game, you will not be able to escape death today. You are too confident. Qin Feng shook his head. Confident? A cold smile flashed on the Alcade Holy Daughter's beautiful face. She was indeed confident. Furthermore, she had the capital to be confident. In the ancient times, she and King Tianliang had obtained a portion of the legacy of the primeval star Taoist. The yin-yang life and death Go game in front of her was a peerless killing technique that she had comprehended from the legacy of the immemorial star Taoist. It used the quasi-emperor's laws as its foundation. It used the billions of stars' laws as its furnace. The power of this technique was extremely great. It allowed her to win every battle. Moreover, this yin-yang life and death Go game was very strange. In this Go board, life and death were accommodated. She, who had mastered the mystery of the Go board, had her own strength supported by billions of stars. She was almost immortal. However, her opponent was different. When he fell into this Go board, not only would he not be able to absorb the slightest amount of yuan qi, but his own strength would also be greatly suppressed by the life and death of billions of stars. This was a balance. Relying on this technique, the Alcade Holy Daughter had even killed an ancient peerless quasi-emperor. Now, she believed that if she used this technique to deal with Qin Feng, the result would be the same. Chapter 13-17. A frog at the bottom of a well. Seeing the confidence on the Alcade's sacred lady's face, Qin Feng shook his head slightly. Indeed, in his eyes, this secret technique was extremely impressive. It had a high chance of winning against ordinary boundary emperors. However, he was not a boundary emperor. He was a real emperor. Heavenly Steel Mystic Technique, fourth move, God Slaying. This time, he directly used the fourth move of the Heavenly Steel Mystic Technique. His hands transformed and formed an ancient hand seal. The next moment, he swept out his palm, which seemed to contain the supreme mark of the great Tao of destruction. Although this great Tao of destruction was not his Tao, it combined with the power of a great emperor to attack with all his might. The world was like a curtain. With a fierce pull, it seemed to be completely shattered into countless pieces. The entire yin-yang life and death chessboard, which was formed by billions of galaxies, was covered by the palm force. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The entire huge chessboard shook violently. The next moment it shattered into billions of pieces and shot in all directions. The Alcade Sacred Lady, who was in charge of the chessboard, was extremely shocked. She was struck by the fierce palm force, and her body exploded into billions of pieces. Her divine soul was crushed into powder and scattered in spacetime. Rumble! The sky seemed to be shattered by the fierce force, and the world that was cut apart by the galaxies began to appear. Qin Feng's figure appeared in the void. At the same time, he looked up. The clouds above Star Trace City parted, and a ray of sunlight shone down. A few hundred feet away, a graceful figure was looking at him with a pale face. Her eyes were filled with extreme shock and disbelief. One could see with the naked eye that faint light of life was emitted from her body. Crack! Crack! As the faint light increased, her life was dissipating. Like a broken porcelain, her jade-like body cracked inch by inch. Like a withered field. Like a porcelain that had gone through countless years. Traces of fragments drifted away from her skin and floated out. This scene was so poignant and moving. However, Qin Feng knew that his palm strike, which contained the supreme great Tao of destruction, had already shattered the last bit of life of this woman. At this moment, she did not die immediately because the other party was a boundary emperor, a top-notch existence with extremely vigorous life force. Junior sister. At this moment, an angry roar came from above Star Trace City. It was like a thunderclap from the ninth heaven. Heaven and earth in all directions were shattered by that roar. A beam of light tore through space and time above the city wall and instantly appeared before the Alcade Holy Daughter. King Tianliang ferociously glanced at the black-robed man not far away. His eyes were as ferocious as a primordial beast's, as if he was about to devour someone. Brilliant silver light floated around his body and erupted like boiling water. He didn't attack Qin Feng. Instead, a huge scale made of starlight appeared around him. The scale seemed to be solid, and it seemed to be suspended between the stars for eternity. It connected him to the Yaoguang Saintess, whose divine soul was shattered. Tian Liang's secret technique, balance of life and death. Amidst his furious roar, a flow of marvelous light enveloped him and the Alcade Saintess. Moments later, the Alcade Saintess turned into a stream of light and entered King Tianliang's body. There's actually such a secret technique? Qin Feng opened his god eye in surprise. Previously, he could clearly sense that the divine soul of the Alcade Saintess had been completely shattered by him. But now, the Alcade Saintess seemed to have regained her vitality. Originally, with her divine soul shattered, the Alcade Saintess was almost certainly dead. Unless a master god intervened and reversed space and time to bring her back to life. King Tianliang was obviously not a master god, but this secret technique of his actually managed to save the Alcade Saintess. No. However, after taking a closer look, Qin Feng suddenly understood. It turns out that you have already formed a life and death contract with her. As long as one of you is alive, you can extend your life and be reborn through the other. This secret technique is really amazing. Qin Feng clapped his hands and exclaimed in admiration. This kind of secret technique that connected the lives of two or even more people was actually not rare in the various sections. But most of them were bound together for good or ill. How could it be like the two in front of him, where life and death complemented each other? At this moment, the two seemed to have merged into one. King Tianliang's aura climbed steadily and reached the peak of the quasi-emperor realm in the blink of an eye. Buzz, buzz. The heavens shook, and the terrifying sound of billions of voids shattering could be heard. It was as if the heavens were trembling under that terrifying aura. An aura rushed into the sky, and the large stars in the starry sky were shattered by the impact of the aura, turning into countless fragments that streaked across the sky. King Tianliang opened his eyes. A dazzling silver-white divine blade bloomed, ferocious and unparalleled, and suppressed Qin Feng. How dare you hurt my junior sister? Even if your cultivation is unparalleled, you will die without a burial place. Shameless boasting. Qin Feng sneered and punched down, causing the sky to crack and the earth to shake. The same silver-white light rushed into the sky and then flew out in an arc. It was sent into the depths of Star Trace City by the powerful Great Emperor Divine Power, smashing into the endless city walls. The entire Star Trace City was instantly penetrated by that ray of silver light. It was hard for ordinary people to imagine that a peak quasi-emperor could be sent flying like this. At this time, all the cultivators who were watching the battle from afar were shocked. However, after that figure crashed into Star Trace City, he rushed into the sky again. He seemed to have an immortal body, like an indestructible demon god, and exuded an unparalleled divine power. Billions of galaxies were trembling because of his existence. Hunyuan's Star City. He roared into the sky, and his deafening roar seemed to pierce through heaven and earth. The earth shook. Under the horrified gazes of many cultivators, 14 huge cities on the ground shone with divine splendor and rushed into the sky. They merged in the void and turned into an ancient sacred city that suppressed billions of void. It's a sacred city? At this moment, some of the powerful cultivators who were watching the battle were inexplicably shocked. Some of the experts were shocked. I'm afraid that's not an ordinary sacred city. The power it exudes has far surpassed that of an ordinary innate spirit treasure. I'm afraid it's close to the level of an ultimate origin treasure. It's really terrifying. The 14 main cities, with Star Trace City as the main city, have been in the crater of meteorites for a long time. I really didn't expect them to be ultimate treasures, and a set at that. Many experts were envious and greedy. The Tianliang sect has poured all their power into those 14 main cities for hundreds of eras. Each of them is a treasure that can suppress an ordinary king. Now that they've revealed their true forms and completely merged, I'm afraid they'll become a supreme ultimate treasure. What a far-sighted plan. Even more experts were secretly afraid. To be able to refine these 14 main cities to such an extent, I'm afraid the Tianliang sect alone can't do it. I'm afraid there's another force behind King Tianliang. I'm afraid that emperor-level expert will suffer a great loss in this battle. Many cultivators were secretly shocked and could not help but shake their heads. From a certain perspective, a divine city like this was not the slightest bit inferior to an origin treasure. Buzz. The huge sacred city shook, magnified thousands of times, and ruthlessly pressed down on Qin Feng. Chapter 13:18. Qin Feng looked coldly at the huge divine city that was pressing down on him. He blasted out a palm, and the sun and moon seemed to be blooming in his palm. The mark of the supreme great Tao of destruction appeared and blasted toward the divine city in the sky. Bang! Cracks appeared on the huge city and the magnificent city walls. The entire divine city flew backward and exploded into the sky. In the 9 heavens and 10 earths, the group of old antiques who were secretly watching were dumbfounded. King Tianliang looked extremely miserable. His body had cracked, and the huge recoil caused his skin to crack inch by inch. Blood flowed continuously. Silver light shone brightly around him, and his injuries were rapidly recovering. Sparkling divine light lingered in the city, and the cracks on the city instantly healed. Although he was severely injured, but he was incomparably fierce. His battle intent surged. He activated the 12th layer of the boundary, the arch-nomological laws, and added it to the divine city. He swore to take revenge for the Alcade Holy Maiden. Smelt all things. A strange power that could smelt all things was born in the depths of the huge city. In an instant, the void within 100,000 miles seemed to be completely smelted and suppressed toward Qin Feng. "You're courting death." Qin Feng was finally enraged. The great emperor's power in his body was fully awakened, and vast divine power swept across the heavens. Bang! 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 The surrounding space-time seemed to be unable to withstand the huge pressure. Space-time shattered inch by inch like millions of water mirrors. Qin Feng's fingers intertwined, and a god-slaying seal erupted. The terrifying seal that contained the supreme Tao of slaughter erupted. Bang! Bang! With a loud boom, the huge city gates of the divine city were completely blown apart. From the center to the center of the city, it was as if the sky had been completely torn apart. The vast massacre seal hit King Tianliang's chest. King Tianliang roared furiously as his flesh and blood split apart. His godly soul turned into thousands of fragments and drifted away. Qin Feng's expression was cold. His hands formed seals again, and as if he was grabbing the sun and moon, he slammed down on King Tianliang's broken body. "No, you can't kill me." King Tianliang was still struggling. A silver scale was brought out, and endless silver light fell from millions of stars. Amidst the starlight, his divine body was rapidly regenerating. Life and death balance. Boundless divine light soared into the sky, turning the descending fist into nothingness. As long as he had this secret technique, he would be in a state of balance between life and death. Even if his divine body and divine soul were destroyed, he could be reborn on the other side of the balance. The ferocious light in his eyes was incomparably fierce as he stared at Qin Feng like an ancient demon god. Countless stars bloomed around him as he slammed his palm toward Qin Feng. As an ancient boundary emperor, he had already comprehended a portion of the space-time laws and touched upon a trace of the great emperor's mysteries. Countless space-times were torn apart by the palm. When the attack landed on Qin Feng's surroundings, billions of voids exploded. Qin Feng's silvery white figure shone with dazzling divine light, like raindrops hitting a banana leaf. He stood firm under the attack of the attack. This kind of outcome shocked King Tianliang greatly. He found it even more unbelievable. It was not just King Tianliang. Many of the ancient experts who were watching the battle were stunned. The full-force strike of a peak quasi-emperor had not hurt a single hair on the mysterious black-robed man. Could the mysterious black-robed man be a supreme sovereign? I don't believe it. King Tianliang's eyes were red as he roared. Eternal Star City. The surface of his body suddenly turned into a blood-colored starlight that soared into the sky, and a huge blood-colored star appeared. Countless scattered fragments of the divine city were summoned and rapidly gathered, turning into a terrifying red divine city. Using his own flesh and blood to repair the city? Is he crazy? The many experts who were watching the battle were shocked. However, they could not help but look greedy. A supreme treasure that has fused with a quasi-emperor's flesh, blood, and divine soul. This city probably has the potential to become an origin supreme treasure. This attack was enough to threaten a supreme sovereign. The eyes of many ancient experts flickered as they prepared themselves for a lose-lose situation. They were prepared to charge forward and snatch this treasure first. The vast blood chi of the quasi-emperor fell into the divine city, cleansing every corner of it. Not only was the divine city restored, but it also seemed like it was about to be upgraded, exuding an immortal and indestructible charm. Kill! The ancient blood-colored divine voice reverberated in the divine city, pressing heavily toward Qin Feng. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Qin Feng shouted as divine light erupted from his eyes. He wanted to establish his supreme sovereign power with an absolute advantage in this battle. A trace of the chief god Space's power appeared on his body. A powerful aura appeared on his body, seemingly shaking the void in all directions. Silver divine light surged like a peerless divine sword, releasing billions of rays of light that covered the sky. Divine steel mystic technique, 4 moves combine. He activated the divine steel mystic technique created by the Kunlun divine ancestor to the extreme. Countless divine steels appeared, combining into one in his palms, and blasted out. Boom! A terrifying sound shook the world. Under the blazing light, many experts who were watching the battle felt temporarily deaf and could not open their eyes. When the light dissipated and everyone opened their eyes, they were instantly shocked. The entire blood-colored divine city had been completely shattered, and countless fragments floated in the void. Those countless fragments were blood-red and sparkling, like the most beautiful treasures in the world. A space-time crack that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles had appeared in the sky, and it could not be closed for a long time. It was like a huge hole that extended to an unknown depth. That terrifying scene made one's soul tremble. Chi-chi. In the depths of that huge hole, a red light flickered, and it was like a basketball-sized heart. King Tianliang's vicious and resentful expression appeared on the heart, and the pitch-black resentful aura stirred the space-time. It was abnormally terrifying. Even though they were thousands of feet apart, Qin Feng could not help but feel a bone-chilling chill on his skin. The next moment, a blood-red light flashed, and he flew toward the depths of the space-time crack. He clearly knew that he was no match for Qin Feng and was preparing to escape. How could Qin Feng let him escape? If he did not remove the roots, they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. This was a great disaster. Divine steel mystic technique, demon suppression. Buzz buzz. He formed a seal with his hands, and there seemed to be an ancient sound. A supreme seal of the great Tao appeared, condensing hundreds of thousands of miles of spacetime. Rumble! At that moment the boundless spacetime above the sky cracked. Let him off when possible. Kid, don't go overboard. A cold voice sounded, accompanied by a huge palm wrapped in silver light that grabbed toward King Tianliang. Divine power surged on that huge palm. That was not ordinary divine power, but the true power of a true god. Obviously, this was a true god. However, the true god of this era had yet to be born. A true god born in an ancient era has made his move. Some old antiques were shocked. Looks like the true god is about to be born, and the laws of heaven and earth are loosening. Some old antiques were worried. Many ancient experts looked slightly strange. This was not a secret, and many old antiques knew about it. Unless a true god was received by a master god, they could not leave the spiritual sea realm. Most true gods would choose to sleep in their god countries as the era changed, and resist the Deva's decay brought about by the era's change. True gods were not afraid of the Deva's decay, but once they were entangled, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Only in the second era, when the first true god was born in heaven and earth, could the true gods born in the previous era or previous eras truly leave their god countries, intervene in the affairs of the world, and fight for fate with the new true god. There's a good show to watch. At that moment, many powerful existences' gazes fell on this place, and some of them were gloating. The true god who made a move was a true god born in the star system. His purpose was needless to say, to save King Tianliang and intercept the fate of this era's star god lineage. Chapter 13:19. How dare you, a mere true god, meddle in my affairs? I think you must be tired of living. Qin Feng's eyes shone with a cold light. Endless divine light burst out from his body. He casually threw out a handprint. The silver-white giant hand that stretched out from the darkness shattered in an instant. At the same time, The basketball-sized blood-red gem that King Tianliang had transformed into was also completely shattered. Kid, you've gone too far. Leave some leeway for us to meet in the future. Kid, when I'm born, I'll definitely settle the karma of today with you. That true god's angry roar came from the depths of the sky. Because of the true god's anger, the sky was dyed with layers of lightning. You're courting death. You true gods who have survived from the ancient era, if you didn't take action, I might not have been able to find your divine nation. But since you've taken action, you've delivered yourself to me. The terrifying strength of a great emperor was displayed without reservation. The 4 moves combined into one, and the heavenly steel handprint blasted out. Bang! The sky was directly pierced through, and the endless space-time was broken open. A huge divine nation that looked like a star appeared in front of the many experts. It was a divine nation that was built in the depths of countless stars and space-time dimensions. This was a terrifying star god. His divine power was boundless. It's a true god from the star god system, and it looks like he's at least a middle heavenly star god. It's the hero star god, one of the middle heavenly star gods. He became a star god 2 eras ago. Someone recognized the true face of that terrifying star god. It's rumored that the hero star god was recruited by the Crepe Myrtle divine system and left. I didn't expect his divine nation to still be here. His strength should not be inferior to an ordinary peak quasi-emperor. Amidst the astonished discussions and the horrified gazes of the crowd, the entire divine nation was suddenly shattered by a dazzling and terrifying handprint. Dazzling light burst out, and the endless galaxies in the universe seemed to suddenly light up, and then suddenly dim. You dare to hurt me? The Crepe Myrtle divine system will not let you off. That star god's final words were accompanied by an earth-shattering light that suddenly dissipated. That instant of fluctuation startled countless ancient existences that were in deep slumber. Deep within the countless planes of the spirit sea realm that resembled a beehive, many ancient divine kingdoms that had not been used for a long time began to stir. The enormous aura raised its head. It seemed to be alarmed. Some of the wills with extremely powerful auras seemed to be slightly startled and took a nap. Then they went back to sleep, waiting for the next time they completely woke up. Some existences with weaker auras were completely awakened by the commotion, waking up from their deep slumber. Rumble! In the depths of the blue dome of heaven, countless bolts of lightning trembled, as if they were mourning the death of a star god. How astonishing! The heroic star god was actually killed without being able to put up any resistance. Many of the experts who were paying attention to this scene were shocked by the divine consciousness. Without a doubt, he's probably an Emperor realm expert. This is the second great emperor to be born after the great emperor from Emperor Shi's sect. In the past, there might not even be a single quasi-emperor in hundreds and thousands of epochs. This epoch has just begun, but there are already 2 supreme emperors. It's really unbelievable. I wonder which epoch this great emperor was born in. For such an existence to be born, I'm afraid it's for the final Master God realm. I'm afraid that the Spirit Sea realm will be the stage for these 2 great emperors for a very long time. Yes, it's best for us to keep a low profile, lest we become the victims of these 2 great emperors. In the battle for providence, there's no retreat. These 2 great emperors won't ignore their advantages. I'm afraid they'll intercept as much providence as possible in an extremely short period of time. There were also people who were deeply worried. Many ancient wills were extremely fearful. However, there were also experts who were optimistic. Such a great era is already not inferior to the famous few epochs of the primordial age. The birth of a great emperor is inevitable. I'm afraid there will be more than 2 great emperors in the future. That's right. With the birth of the first true god in this epoch, there will also be divine kings who are not inferior to the great emperor realm. At that time, these two supreme emperors may not be able to cover the sky with one hand. That's right. We have to make the first true god of this epoch appear in the shortest time possible. Only then can we release the gods to resist the two great emperors. Otherwise, if the two supreme emperors are allowed to dominate, I'm afraid we won't have a place to live. Even more ancient experts harbored evil intentions, and all kinds of checks and balances were activated. Qin Feng's expression did not change. He had killed the star god whose divine nation had set up in the depths of countless star planes with one strike. He was very clear about the fear and malice of the experts around him. He did not care. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. After killing King Tianliang and the Sun-Moon Sword sect, the entire new primordial chaos Xingqian school would fall into his hands. The enormous amount of providence from the star gods might be enough to support him to take another step in the great emperor realm. As for the unexpected star god of the Earth hero, it was a bonus. Killing a complete star god that had existed since the primordial age was a great supplement to the providence of the star god lineage. Qin Feng swept a glance around. At this time, the divine senses of the experts had already quietly retreated. He could imagine that it would not be long before his name would resound throughout the entire Spirit Sea realm. In this great era, he would become the stabilizing force of the Xingqian school. At least, before the true god was born, no one would dare to invade the myriad star region, Sun-Moon spiritual region, primordial chaos spiritual region, and Tianliang spiritual region. 2 months later, in the Emperor's Star City. The Emperor's Star City was located outside the crater of Meteorite. It was the original Star Trace City. The original Star Trace City and the surrounding 14 main cities had fused into a divine city. After the divine city was destroyed, Qin Feng smelted the remaining fragments of the divine city and turned it into the Emperor's Star City, suppressing the outside of the crater of Meteorite. In the depths of the Emperor's Star City, on the Emperor's throne in the center of the star, Qin Feng, who was dressed in a black robe, opened his eyes slightly. Sensing the strange ancient trees in his divine sense, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of a smile. At this time, in the main hall, the remaining 3 kings of the primordial Xingqian school stood respectfully. After Qin Feng killed King Tianliang and the Alcade Holy Maiden, many of the experts of the Xingqian school, including the 3 kings, had chosen to submit. No expert was willing to face the might of a great emperor head-on, especially after Qin Feng announced his identity as the sect master of the Xingqian school. The Xingqian school was originally a branch of the primordial chaos sect. As the sect master of the Xingqian school, it was natural for him to accept the position of primordial Xingqian school's sect master. Although there were some who were not tactful, after a series of thunderous methods, the entire primordial Xingqian school was under Qin Feng's control. To Qin Feng, the most important thing now was how to completely integrate the 2 major sects, the Xingqian school and the Xingqian school. Chapter 1320. The Wind Pool Divine Land of the 9 Great Divine Lands. The Wind Pool Divine Land was extremely vast. The spirit chi was so dense that it was almost tangible. The life essence here was so dense that it was terrifying. It was like the center of heaven and earth. In this place, even an ordinary mountain was comparable to the headquarters of a sect in spirit realm. Emperor Shi sect was the overlord of the Wind Pool Divine Land. Its sect was located in the deepest part of the Wind Pool Divine Land, the Innate 8 Extremes Mountain. The Innate 8 Extremes Mountain was an innate divine mountain. It was rumored that it was a fragment that fell from the chaos. It contained some extremely mysterious primordial Tao. The ancient emperor Shi obtained the fragment of this mountain and comprehended its mysteries. That was how he was able to finally prove his Tao and become an ancient emperor. He started an era. Emperor Shi sect, in the deepest part of the 8 trigrams Tao Seeking Hall. A beautiful goddess with hazy eyes looked at the depths of the sea of clouds from the cliff. There were many guards around them, regardless of whether they were male or female. Many disciples looked at the woman with admiration and respect. Beside this woman, there were many strong cultivators wearing white robes embroidered with the 8 trigrams. If there were strong cultivators here, they would definitely be able to sense the aura emitted by many of the white-robed cultivators from time to time. It was the king's law of kings. There were 7 or 8 kings here. In many sects, king realm cultivators were like the sea stabilizing needles. Even now, when the Great Era began, the kings accumulated over many eras appeared one by one to fight for fate. A king was still very important, and now there were 7 or 8 of them. It was shocking. Apart from the 7 or 8 king tiers, there was also a calm and collected purple-robed elder. He looked to be in his 60s and wore a purple-gold bagua robe. His body exuded a kind of tranquil gentleness as his large sleeves fluttered in the wind. His eyebrows were extremely long, and he looked kind and amiable. On the side, there was a middle-aged man in black robes who was at the peak of the middle celestial realm. He was reporting to everyone what happened in the Tianliang spirit region 2 months ago. That person killed the star god of Earth hero. After that, he occupied the Tianliang spirit realm, the Sun-Moon spirit realm, and the Hunyuan spirit realm. He called himself the sect master of the Hunyuan Xingqian school. Over the past few days, many sects have joined the Hunyuan Xingqian school. Also, according to the information from the Lingbao sect, that expert seems to be from the Xingqian school in the realm of stars. He is one of the 12 true disciples of this generation, and his title is Yuanshi. A few days ago, he returned to the Xingqian school from the depths of the eastern wilderness divine treasure. The moment he appeared, he defeated Crepe Myrtle Star, who was in charge and unified Xingqian school. It's suspected that he obtained the supreme elixir or the inheritance of the great emperor of the eastern wilderness in the eastern wilderness. Right now, the identity of that great emperor has been gradually spread. His title is Yuanshi. Many things related to Qin Feng, no matter how big or small, were laid out before the eyes of the many higher-ups of the Emperor Shi sect, including many speculations. Yuanshi the Great Emperor. The eyes of the beautiful goddess moved slightly. Traces of strange light flickered in her sparkling, beautiful eyes. In less than 20 years, he went from a mere disciple of a small clan to a great emperor. This is probably a bit exaggerated. I'm afraid that this great emperor was not born in this era. A king shook his head. This abnormality was too obvious. A trace of pity flickered in his eyes. If this person was born in the Wind Pool Divine Land, he would definitely be found by the Emperor Shi sect immediately and killed. Or he would be plundered and become the foundation of the Emperor Shi sect. It was a pity that the 3,000 spirit domain was too vast. Even though the Lingbao sect was known to be all-pervasive, it was difficult for them to cover everything. Many of the experts of the Emperor Shi sect had the same thoughts as this king. The sooner an ancient existence was discovered, the smaller the impact it would have on the Emperor Shi sect. Naturally, there were more strategies that could be formulated. Whether it was absorbing or killing the great emperor, they could choose. Now that the great emperor had completely matured, even with the power of the Emperor Shi sect, they could not easily shake him. Currently, the problem before the Emperor Shi sect is how to face this Yuanshi great emperor. Is he a friend or a foe? Said a king who looked like a short old man. After pondering for a while, he looked around at everyone. Finally, he bowed slightly to the beautiful woman in front of the cliff railing. Although there are many experts in the Spirit Sea realm, there are only Empress Hua and the Yuanshi Great Emperor. In my opinion, it is not appropriate for our 2 factions to go to war for the time being. I agree with this point. Now that the gods have not appeared, no one can compete with the Great Emperor. This is really a good opportunity for the Emperor Shi sect to expand and gather the fate of all living beings and gods. If we miss this opportunity, when the gods appear, the Emperor Shi sect will lose the upper hand," said one of the kings in green. They represented the will of the majority of the experts of the Emperor Shi sect. Seizing more fate would mean that more cultivators from Emperor Shi's sect would become gods in this era. The chances of Empress Hua becoming a master god were higher. If they missed this opportunity and the gods appeared, the Emperor Shi sect would have no choice but to compete with the other sects. Instead of fighting with the Yuanshi Great Emperor, it was better to seize the benefits first. Everyone looked at the purple-robed old man beside Empress Hua. "Patriarch Liangyi, do you have any instructions?" one of the kings asked after bowing respectfully. This purple-robed old man had an extremely high status. He was a peerless boundary emperor of the Emperor Shi sect. He had been working hard to become an imperial emperor. In many eras, he had been able to prove his Tao and become a divine emperor. However, he had given up on all of them. He was only waiting for the great emperor to prove his Tao and become a peak divine king. A peak divine king was a half-step master god. A great emperor who became a divine king could be called a divine emperor. Their strength was far stronger than ordinary divine kings. The chances of becoming a master god were also far higher than ordinary divine kings. Seeing everyone looking at him, the divine ancestor Liangyi pondered for a moment. After a while, he said, "I agree. The Emperor Shi sect and Xingqian school are very far apart, and we don't have any conflicts of interest for now. The most important thing for us now is to make the best use of our time to intimidate the sects and clans around the Wind Swamp Divine Land and try our best to win over the destiny that the Emperor Shi sect can seize in the shortest time possible. However, before that, I have a suggestion." Empress Hua's expression changed slightly. She seemed to have guessed something as she looked at the purple-robed old man. "I suggest that the Emperor Shi sect and Xingqian school form an alliance. If Empress Hua can reach an agreement with the Yuanshi Great Emperor to suppress the birth of the true gods." At this point, the purple-robed old man paused for a moment and smiled at the beautiful woman. Deep in the Emperor's Star City, on the central throne, Qin Feng's thoughts were still immersed in how to integrate the various forces into one. At this moment, he had many forces under his control. The new Hunyuan Xingqian school and the sects near the Tianliang spiritual region, Sun Moon spiritual region, and Hunyuan spiritual region were all under his control. They were extremely powerful and had a great influence. However, if these forces were not integrated with the realm of stars and the northern spiritual region, they would still be in a state of disunity. Fortunately, he already had a plan in mind. Chapter 13:21. In the center of the hall, under the gaze of the three kings, Qin Lai walked down from the emperor's throne. He stood with his eyes closed. The power of the Dream Realm Divine Kingdom. Qin Feng closed his eyes. Through his remote sensing, he could see the rich Dream Realm energy sweeping through dozens of spirit domains. Like a torrential river, it swept up millions of miles of wave. Like a miracle, it connected the myriad star domain, northern spirit domain, extreme north snow domain, longevity spirit domain, Langya spirit domain, scarlet flame spirit domain, and several other spirit domains in between to the Tianliang spirit domain, Sun Moon spirit domain, and Hunyuan spirit domain. The vast spirit domains were like narrow canyons that connected dozens of spirit domains. Through the dream power of the Dream Realm Divine Kingdom, they were all connected. To a certain extent, he had completed the connection between the realm of stars, Hunyuan spirit domain, Tianliang spirit domain, and Sun Moon spirit domain. In the remote sensing, the rich dream force evolved into many virtual worlds. The thoughts of all living beings evolved in them. They either turned into martial artists or ordinary existences. It was like a complete universe, tempering one's state of mind and martial technique. The three kings in the hall could sense this strong power. The experts of Hunyuan Xingqian school could sense it. Naturally, the experts of many sects in the spirit domains could also sense it. However, no one dared to use their power to cut it off or interfere. The emperor's will enveloped them. Many sect experts could feel a terrifying pressure that penetrated their bones. It was as if just a wisp of it could crush an ordinary king. There were already some hidden ancient existences who felt the invasion of the dream realm. However, they did not dare to move carelessly. They were even more afraid of attracting the attention of a great emperor. Thanks to this, Qin Feng could sense that the ruler of the dream realm, the third dream god Bailu, had quietly condensed a semi-solid divine spark with the dream realm's laws a few days ago. He had advanced to the dream realm king level. The development of the dream realm did not stop there. In this month, the dream realm divine kingdom spread domineeringly to other spirit domains under Qin Feng's control. This domineering spread caused many experts to be angry but not dare to say anything. They did not dare to forcefully stop it. A martial monarch was even more intimidating than he had imagined. Of course, the most important thing was that the Dreamland Kingdom didn't seriously encroach on the interests of these sections. Moreover, the Dreamland Kingdom could guide warriors to temper their state of mind, allowing the sects to benefit. With the evolution of the Dreamland Kingdom, Qin Feng opened up the free trade and exchange of various cultivation techniques, medicinal pills, and even various treasures in the Dreamland Kingdom. Even the ownership of the illusory world was granted. This was of great significance to many sections. In addition, the Dream Kingdom also opened up various areas, such as the Cultivation Technique area, the Cultivation Technique Testing area, the Cultivation Technique Comparison area, the Martial Arts Trial area, the Entertainment area, the Gaming area, and so on. To many martial artists this was beneficial. Above Qin Feng's head, a huge world was evolving. In the center of the world, a huge divine throne was supported by two huge streams of fate, and a part of it vaguely appeared. Clearly, what he had gained in the past 2 months had brought Qin Feng one step closer to becoming a lord. Under this huge deity throne, several huge tributaries flowed into the deity throne. Below the huge deity throne, there were a few deity thrones that looked like they were real. They were the changes that occurred when fate gathered and grew to the extreme. The deity throne evolved from the innate deity throne. Above the fate of lineage of star, as Qin Feng activated the fate, a silver-white deity throne that was shining with innate divine light gradually condensed. That was the innate deity throne that represented lineage of star god in spirit sea realm. Qin Feng already possessed the qualification to break through the innate deity throne of star lineage of origin. If he were to break through now, he would most likely be able to become an innate star god of origin. Moreover, he wouldn't be an ordinary real god, but a divine king in star lineage. He should be an emperor god. To become a god with the body of a supreme emperor, he would surpass an ordinary innate origin god and innate divine king and become an innate origin god emperor directly. As an innate real god, the power of an innate origin god emperor was far above an innate origin god and innate divine king. It was the existence that was closest to the level of master god. However, such thoughts only flashed past Qin Feng's mind for a moment and he suppressed them. It was impossible for him to break through to the deity throne at that moment. Once the first real god was born, the universe would completely loosen the suppression on the real gods and divine kings from the previous era. Then, the real gods would be born. This was not in Qin Feng's interest. If he were to prove his Tao before completing his great emperor realm, the chances of him becoming a master god in this era would be extremely slim. Qin Feng was determined to become a master god. Hence, he definitely wouldn't prove his Tao before completing his great emperor realm. As for the fate of water lineage, as many sects in spirit region were controlled, many of them were water lineage sects. Hence, the fate of this lineage had increased. However, there was no doubt that the fate of Dream Kingdom and Lineage of Star God had increased the most. Most of the fate of Lineage of Star God has been taken over by Spirit Sea Realm. Other than a few secluded big clans under Lineage of Star God, and the fate of Golden Crow Clan in Wild Wasteland of Spirit Region, Qin Feng pondered. The total amount of fate of Lineage of Star wasn't particularly huge. To be able to support 1 or 2 innate deity thrones in this era was already the limit. It wasn't like the fate of Water Lineage. In Qin Feng's senses, the fate of Water Lineage of Star God was relatively strong among the various lineages. It could support at least 4 to 5 innate deity thrones of Water Lineage of Origin. The fate of Lineage of Star God has already reached its limit. As for the Golden Crow Clan, although I will definitely have to deal with them in the future, it's still too early to do so now. Opening his eyes, Qin Feng's eyes flashed. The Golden Crow Clan was the royal clan of Wild Wasteland of Spirit Region. They were extremely strong and had even produced a master god of the demon race. They definitely had a treasure that could resist great emperors. Qin Feng felt a little helpless in his heart. His current fate was strong enough to break through to the innate deity thrones. However, if he wanted to prove his Tao, he was still too far away. Forget proving one's Tao as a lord, even cultivating one's past body, which was the easiest thing to kill as a great emperor, might not be enough. Every step forward in Great Emperor Realm required a terrifying amount of fate. It was far beyond the imagination of ordinary experts. Feeling a little helpless, Qin Feng smiled bitterly in his heart. No wonder so many great emperors wanted to unify various regions and become heavenly emperors. I'm afraid only the ancient heavenly emperors who were supplied with the fate of Spirit Region of Spirit Sea Realm could barely meet such a huge demand. Shaking his head slightly, Qin Feng walked out of the main hall. From the side of Emperor Star City, he could see the vast sea of clouds above the meteorite crater. At this moment, according to the situation of Spirit Treasure Sect, among the top 10 forces of the various sects, there were indeed forces that could counterbalance great emperors. However, there were only 2 true emperors. One was him, and the other was Emperor Nuwa of Emperor Shi Sect. With the expansion of Primordial Chaos Xingqian School, there should be no opponents for the time being. Emperor Nuwa was very mysterious. Qin Feng did not know much about her. As for her strength, he could not give an evaluation. Looking at the sea of clouds, Qin Feng's eyes were deep and leisurely. There were also differences in Great Emperor Realm. After breaking through the peak of the Boundary Emperor Realm and reaching the Emperor Realm, it was very difficult to cultivate heavenly laws. If one wanted to improve, they had to sever the fetters of 3 lives and reveal their true self. Only then could they improve. Thus, there was the severing of 3 lives realm. The 3 lives included the past, present, and future. The easiest to sever was the past. Chapter 1322. The 3 lives included the past, present, and future. The concept of 3 lives came from the Pure Land of Buddhism. The Buddhists believed that the past, future, and present were the proof of the 3 lives. They were the Buddha. In the past, an Almighty entered the Pure Land of Buddhism and comprehended the art of severing the 3 lives. He severed the 3 lives and revealed his true self. That Almighty believed that the past, present, and future were intertwined. The 3 lives were intertwined. Those who cultivated karma could not transcend fate and could not comprehend the Dharch realm. They could not comprehend the mysteries of the Lords. Only by severing the 3 lives could one harmonize their hearts and swim to the other side. Of the 3 lives, the past was the weakest and the easiest to kill. The future was the strongest. Severing the 3 lives was extremely dangerous. If one was not careful, they would suffer a backlash and die without a burial ground. However, if one severed the 3 lives, the peak Dharch realm would have no weaknesses. The peak Tharch realm could even challenge the lords to a certain extent. In this world, the Tharch realm was not inferior to the lords of other worlds in terms of pure strength. However, if the two fought head-on, the Tharch would definitely die. In the end, apart from the difference in their comprehension of realms, it was also because of the control of spacetime. The lords comprehended the three lives and could pierce through spacetime. They could kill the Thearcha's past and destroy the present. If one severed the three lives and reached the peak Tharch realm, the Tharch could indeed challenge the lords. However, severing the three lives was too difficult for the Tharch realm. Throughout the ancient era, many Thearchs were born. Most of them only severed the past. Very few could sever all three lives. There were only records of the three ancient emperors. Among the ancient emperors, it was said that only the eastern wilderness Tharch had severed all three lives. The other ancient emperors mostly severed their past bodies. Only a few severed their past bodies. Now, Qin Feng was proficient in many mysteries of the demonic Tao, martial Tao, sorcery Tao, immortal Tao, and magic Tao. He also had the legacy of countless eras of Xingqian school as his foundation. He had already sorted out how to sever the three lives. However, there were three methods: upper, middle, and lower. For the current Qin Feng, the other normal methods were too slow. Ordinary methods would take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to comprehend. Even with the help of the Master Godspace, it would take him a few hundred years to reach the first step, the body of the past. However, if one had luck, they could use it to shorten the time by countless times. For many cultivators, there were almost no shortcuts in each major realm from comprehending Qi to becoming a lord. They had to take it one step at a time. However, nothing was absolute. Only luck, when activated by luck, could reduce the number of seconds by countless. Providence was a necessary consumable for high-level cultivators to speed up their cultivation. From Qin Feng's point of view, even though he had such a strong foundation, it was still beyond his power to sever his past body. In order to be safe, he might have to plunder some luck. Maybe we can take this opportunity to seize one of the 9 divine lands and use it as a base for Hunyuan Xingqian school. Qin Feng murmured as a strange glint flashed in his eyes. The 9 divine lands were the center of the spirit sea realm. The luck there was much more than the 3,000 spirit regions. If he could seize some of it, it would definitely be enough to sever his past body. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'm afraid you're not qualified to take the 9 divine lands. Suddenly, a slightly sarcastic voice came from above the empty hall. The 3 kings who followed closely behind looked at Qin Feng in surprise. The strange silhouette came from this person's body. Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. He felt a stream of light fly out from the Master God's space in his body and land beside him. She was dressed in pink, and her skirt fluttered in the wind, outlining her beautiful and graceful figure. She was about 28 years old. She had a pair of red lips and a sweet smile. Her every move was like a dance. Her long hair reached her ankles. When she untied her hair, it danced in the wind and emitted a fragrance that could attract butterflies. Her waist was slender, her limbs were long, and her temperament was ever-changing. She was like a demoness, a fairy, a goddess. Demoness, you can actually escape from my god nation? Looking at this woman, Qin Feng's expression changed drastically, and his heart trembled violently. Seeing Qin Feng's expression, the pink-clothed girl giggled. Qin Feng, do you really think your god nation can restrain me? You're wrong. What kind of status do you have? Even the great Eastern Wilderness Emperor had to be respectful to me. How can you restrain me? The girl's tone was slightly arrogant. Her slender neck was raised like a proud and graceful swan. Looking at this woman, Qin Feng's expression changed, and his heart trembled indescribably. This woman was none other than the demoness that he had always thought was imprisoned by him. At this moment, Qin Feng's heart trembled. After such a long time, the Master God Space had absorbed the origin power of various great worlds. It was no longer the same as when it had just been upgraded. Its power was at least dozens of times stronger than before. He was confident that even if a Master God fell into the Master God Space, he wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. Not only could this woman escape, but she also seemed to be able to ignore the ability of the Master God Space. This was too unbelievable. Kid, you don't have to be so shocked. Although your Master God Space is powerful, compared to me back then, pausing slightly, the pink-clothed girl's smile suddenly disappeared, and she stopped talking. Qin Feng's eyes flickered, and he asked, "How were you back then?" The pink-clothed girl's beautiful almond-shaped eyes looked at Qin Feng with a faint smile. She quickly turned around. Her beautiful eyes landed on the vast sea of clouds as she spoke in an old-fashioned manner. "Kid, you don't have to ask so much. I'm just here to remind you that with your current cultivation, it's best that you don't have any ideas about the 9 great divine lands." "Why?" Qin Feng asked back. His state of mind was detached, and the shock in his heart slowly calmed down. There was clearly a trace of disapproval between his brows. The 9 great divine lands, the 4 symbols and the 5 manifestations. Although the major sects in the 9 great divine lands were far more powerful than the 72 mysterious sects, with his current strength of the great Emperor realm, which sect couldn't be destroyed with a wave of his hand. Except for Emperor Shi sect, which had Emperor Enviwa in charge. Seeing the disapproval on Qin Feng's face, the pink-clothed girl sneered. "Kid, if you think that with the strength of the great Emperor realm, you can do whatever you want in the Spirit Sea realm, you're wrong. There were great emperors who fell in the primordial age. The waters of the 9 great divine lands are deeper than you think." The pink-clothed girl's expression became slightly serious at the end of her sentence. Hearing this, Qin Feng's expression became silent. If it was someone else, Qin Feng might not believe it. However, the pink-clothed girl's background was mysterious, especially the technique she used to easily enter the Master God Space. Even an emperor couldn't easily do that. Qin Feng couldn't help but be cautious about her words. Seeing that Qin Feng was silent, the pink-clothed girl smiled and asked back, "Do you know why the 10 great divine sects have the word divine in their names?" Everyone knows that the 10 great divine sects have a vast role in the 9 great divine lands, and their strength is the best in the 3,000 spirit regions and the 72 mysterious sects. Therefore, the world respects the word divine in their names. Qin Feng and the pink-clothed girl turned around. The one who spoke was a king of the Hunyuan Xingqian school. "Wrong." The pink-clothed girl sneered. "And it's a big mistake." As soon as she said this, not only did Qin Feng frown, but the 3 kings also looked at her in shock. Chapter 13:23. The Vixen in Pink sneered. The gods in the 10 divine sects are not the gods of the 9 great divine lands, but the gods of the 10 great divine systems. 10 great divine systems? Qin Feng's body shook violently. He stared at the girl in pink, and a chill enveloped his heart. Could it be that the 10 great divine sects each have a huge divine system as their backer? A king couldn't help but mutter to himself. However, he couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. How is this possible? I'm afraid it's very possible. In front of the stairs, Qin Feng sighed in his heart. His expression changed subtly. Primordial Xingqian school was also the sect that dominated the 9 great divine lands, and was one of the divine sects in the past. Xingqian school inherited part of Primordial Xingqian school's legacy. In addition, Primordial sect, Tianliang sect, and Sun Moon Sword sect had successively fallen into Qin Feng's hands. Qin Feng knew a lot of the secrets of Primordial Xingqian school back then. He also vaguely knew that Primordial Xingqian school wasn't just relying on the legacy of Primordial Xingqian school to become the master of Primordial Xingqian school. It was also supported by Crepe Myrtle Divine System behind Primordial Xingqian School. Back then, if Crepe Myrtle Divine System hadn't suddenly declined, Primordial Xingqian School wouldn't have declined so quickly and even split into several branches. The vixen in pink continued. Pulling one together will trigger the whole situation. If you plot to seize the 9 great divine lands, it's inevitable that the god systems behind them will be affected. Although most of the god system's power is in the outer region, and although the master gods and many true gods can't enter the Spirit Sea realm, it's not like they don't have a shocking backup plan in the Spirit Sea realm. The vixen in pink glanced at Qin Feng. Although your cultivation has advanced to unprecedented levels, and your combat power is incredible, it's still a stretch to say that you want to seize the 9 great divine lands. As soon as she said that, Qin Feng was instantly speechless. He couldn't refute what the vixen in pink said. Moreover, Qin Feng had reason to believe that even if he forcefully seized one divine land, the other sex wouldn't interfere. Without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. The many divine systems in the Spirit Sea realm were too complicated. Even if 1 or 2 great emperors rose up, they wouldn't be able to shake the original structure of the top 10 forces. Fortunately, those god organizations could not interfere in the Spirit Sea realm. Otherwise, the situation would be even more complicated. However, Qin Feng had to make the best use of his time to break through. At the very least, he had to sever his past body before the gods came into being. With the birth of the gods, the battle for providence in the Spirit Sea realm would truly enter a white-hot stage. Many true gods would intercept providence and turn it into resources for their own improvement. There were even god kings and god emperors. A 15th-level god king, in terms of rank, was above the ordinary Hotian, Zhongtian, and Xiantian true gods. He was the king of the gods. At the same level as the great emperor, the otherworld sovereign's infiltration of the Spirit Sea realm would continue to increase, and they would seize the karmic luck of the Spirit Sea realm. Many Spirit Sea divine systems in the outer realm would also send down supreme methods to interfere. As a great emperor, Qin Feng could certainly obtain the position of great emperor at that time and protect himself. However, if he were to become a lord god in this era, it would be nothing more than a bubble. That would be fatal. Qin Feng knew very well that he had offended the limestone sovereign. If he waited until the end of the era, many true gods would be forced to leave the Spirit Sea realm and go to the outer realm. The limestone sovereign would probably be the first to settle the score. However, if he wanted to sever his past body, he had to have enough providence. This was a dead end. Qin Feng's eyes flashed. In reality, he still had a choice. Fight for the position of emperor. He cultivated the 8 desolation indestructible heaven scripture. This cultivation technique, if returned to the right path, would be a supreme technique that could gather providence, leading directly to the position of emperor. In the Spirit Sea realm, this was the only technique that could allow one to gather the destiny of the emperor. However, if that was the case, there were a few problems in front of Qin Feng. If he wanted to become an ancient emperor, he had to obtain the recognition of the 3,000 spirit regions and the 9 great divine lands. It would not be easy to make the various sects and the 10 great divine lands submit. Moreover, it would take a long time. At that time, the true gods would probably be born one after another. Secondly, not to mention the time, the 10 great divine lands would not compromise easily. They would definitely have to fight with the 10 great divine systems to determine who was better. Lastly, and most importantly, in Qin Feng's impression, there were other secrets in the Golden Era that did not allow the birth of the emperor. In his previous life, it was recorded in the era of the gods that an emperor had been born in the Golden Era. However, he was attacked by a group of experts and turned into dust. This made Qin Feng very wary. There were too many secrets buried in the Spirit Sea realm. Qin Feng opened his eyes. He did not know when the pink-clothed demoness had returned to the Master God's space. Moreover, She had opened up a huge area in the center of the Master God's space as a private palace. She seemed to have noticed Qin Feng's gaze. At the side of the holy spring, in the palace, the pink-clothed witch's eyes moved. She had a bright and elegant smile. She was born bright and beautiful, and there was a hint of charm in her beautiful eyes that was between youth and maturity. Because of her smile, all the flowers in the surroundings bloomed together. That lad is interesting. With such talent and experience, he is not inferior to the ancient emperors. If he takes another step forward, he might catch up with those who were once famous and have a chance to become a master god. The pink-clothed witch had a strange look. She had seen countless famous geniuses. Among them, even the great emperor of the eastern wilderness paled in comparison. Although Qin Feng's talent was strong, it was only enough for her to take a second look. I hope this lad can achieve something and help me, the pink-clothed witch thought of something. There was a hint of worry, helplessness, and a hint of anger between her eyebrows. In a moment, she became calm and collected. It was pointless to think too much about this. In the eyes of the pink-clothed witch, Qin Feng was just a small fry. If he could become a master god one day, he might be able to help. Since the 9 great divine lands could not be touched, Qin Feng had fewer options. If he wanted to kill the past body in a short time, it would be almost impossible. In the past few days, he had thought of many ideas, including all kinds of evil methods. However, none of them were feasible. The operability was extremely low. It was either too dangerous or too long. What Qin Feng lacked the most was time. All of these methods had been rejected. In the depths of the palace, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of pondering. It seemed that there was only one way left. Without a sound, an extremely powerful space-time power of the heavenly Tao descended. It was mighty and surging. In the next moment, Qin Feng's figure disappeared from the depths of the primordial Xingqian School's palace. At the same time, in the Lingshao Palace of Xingqian School, an invisible figure appeared in the depths of the palace. A great emperor's power was silently released. It was a power that was completely different from Qin Feng's. Chapter 1324. Nanzhan Section Continent. Chang'an City, a big country in Shaanxi, was the place where the emperors built their capitals. Since the Zhou, Qin, and Han dynasties, the 3 provinces were full of flowers and the 8 rivers flowed around the city. It was really a famous country. At that time, Emperor Taizong of the Tang dynasty ascended the throne and changed the name of Yuanjin Temple. He had already ascended the throne for 13 years and the world was peaceful. Chang'an was majestic. On the streets, people in all kinds of clothes came and went. Carriages and horses were like dragons. It was like a dream. It's really a majestic country, extraordinary. In the crowd, a handsome young man in a black robe sighed. He looked young and was dressed in luxurious clothes. He was like a traveling scholar, elegant and graceful. However, there was a trace of wind and frost in his eyes. He also looked travel-worn. Behind him were 2 strong men with swords, like guards. Obviously, this young man's identity was not ordinary. As long as one had good eyesight, one would know that this person was probably from a foreign land. However, since Emperor Li Shimin of the Tang dynasty ascended the throne, there was an endless stream of foreign trade caravans. Many Tang merchants also went to the western region. This was not unusual. Tang dynasty, in the Nanzhan Section Continent, was a first-class country. This could be seen from the Tang people who could not hide their pride when they looked at the foreign people on the official road. This was a kind of spirit. After accumulating in the Zhou, Qin, and Han dynasties, this pride reached its peak after the Tang dynasty was established. Only the Tang people had this kind of strong confidence. The young man in the black robe looked at the tall tower in front of him and the majestic palace like a giant beast. There was an inexplicable expression that disappeared and there was a flash of a sigh. He found a tea shop by the roadside and sat down. After a while, a waiter came up to serve tea and water and politely greeted him. "Young master, do you need anything? Our Yangchun noodles are the best in Chang'an." The young man in the black robe waved his hand. "No need to be so troublesome. A cup of tea will do." The young man in the black robe looked at the two men in the brocade robe and said lightly, "You two also sit down." "Yes, young master." The two men in the brocade robe sat down respectfully. The waiter and the owner saw this scene and immediately became more respectful. This was undoubtedly a big merchant with status and background. Even in the caravans of the western regions, it was rare to have such a strong servant. Journey to the West. I didn't expect that I would actually enter the strange era of Journey to the West. At this moment, the black-robed man raised his teacup and felt the prosperity of the entire Chang'an city. His expression was complicated. It wasn't easy for him to come here. The black-robed man was none other than Qin Feng, who had used the ability to travel through space. Obviously, there weren't many ways to improve in a short period of time. Using the Lord God's space to take a risk was a good idea. If he were to encounter a world similar to the Faerun continent, it would be easy for him to unify the world or plunder its resources. However, he never thought that he would enter the era of Journey to the West. Thanks to the Transmigrator's legacy, his adventures in the White Snake world, and a portion of the great Emperor of the Eastern Mountains' legacy, Qin Feng knew how terrifying the Journey to the West era was. 16th Tier Dao Integration Stage Golden Immortals appeared from time to time, and there were even 17th Tier Dao Ancestors of the second step and 18th Tier Dao Ancestors of the third step guarding the depths of the Chaos World. There were also two giants, the Heavenly Court and the Spirit Mountain of the West Earth. Apart from that, there were many big demons, demon kings, and demon saints who raised their banners and proclaimed themselves kings of the various mountains. There were also many mighty figures who passed down their orthodoxies and countless sects all over the place. There were 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times more than the Spirit Sea continent. There were also many ancient great gods. How terrifying! When he first entered this place, even Qin Feng felt a wave of shock in his heart. But then, he felt strange. According to the rules of space-time, the more powerful a world was, the harder it was to break through. Qin Feng was puzzled, but at the same time, he was slightly relieved. When he learned that this was the space-time of Journey to the West, Qin Feng actually had other thoughts in his mind. He was familiar with the plot of Journey to the West. If he could make good use of it, he might be able to benefit from it. He could take the opportunity to gain a lot of merit when Tang Sanzang and the other 4 traveled to the west and use it to advance further. He could become a Buddha and a sage. Moreover, compared to the Spirit Sea Buddhist sect that had already declined, the Buddhist sect here was undoubtedly prosperous to the extreme. Even if he didn't plan Journey to the West, taking a step back, if he could obtain the true essence of the Buddhist sect and comprehend the mystery of 3 lives, it would be a gain. But very quickly this idea was completely overturned. Qin Feng looked into the distance with a strange look in his eyes. "Have you heard? That sinner escaped from prison. Is it that Jiang Lure?" On the side, at another tea stall, 2 whispers were heard. Qin Feng glanced at the 2 of them. "Isn't that so? That little monk is so cruel. He actually carried a Buddhist commandment blade and killed his way from Lord Chen's door to the inner court. Blood flowed like a river. How cruel!" One of them looked a little frightened and spoke as if he was there himself. "I also heard that all the Yamen runners in Jiang province died an unnatural death. Lord Chen, the provincial governor of Jiang province, had his limbs chopped off and was beaten to death. In the entire provincial governor's mansion, only Madame Yin was spared. Dear guests, have you also heard?" The waiter with a sweat towel couldn't help but interrupt. "Yes, now the whole city is talking about it. His Majesty is furious. I heard that he wants to exterminate his entire family and behead him in public. This audacious thief deserves to die. He even dared to assassinate the provincial governor of a province. His crime is intolerable." The waiter grinned and said, "Actually, dear guests, you only know one thing and don't know the other. One of my brothers works in the Supreme Court and knows some inside information. In fact, Provincial Governor Chen is actually an imposter. The real Lord Chen was pushed into the river by that imposter more than 10 years ago, and that little monk called Jiang Luer is actually the real Lord Chen's son. This is to avenge his father." "Is that so?" "There's such a thing. A son avenging his father is a matter of course. Yes, if it's true, that imposter provincial governor really deserves to be killed. He dared to steal someone's wife, impersonate someone else, and deceive the emperor. He really deserves to die." As the two guests discussed animatedly, a few foreign merchants saw the commotion and sat down to listen. They ordered a lot of tea and noodles. Seeing this scene, the owner of the tea stall, who had wanted to reprimand the waiter, was overjoyed. He put away the cold look on his face and simply let the waiter have his way. He began to serve tea to the seated guests. Seeing this scene, the waiter became even more enthusiastic and beamed with joy. Now that little monk called Jiang Luer has been released and has returned to Buddhism. His Majesty has also given him the name Xuanzang. He will continue to cultivate in Jinshan Temple. Chapter 1325. Jiang Luer, Tang Xuanzang? Qin Feng's eyes glinted. According to the memories of the transmigrator, Tang Xuanzang was not so valiant as to kill everyone in the provincial governor's mansion with a Buddhist commandment blade. One must know that the fake provincial governor wasn't an ordinary person. Qin Feng had once investigated the fake provincial governor's mansion at close range, trying to find out what was going on and gain the upper hand in the journey to the west. However, he was surprised to find that Lu Hong, who was pretending to be Chen Guangrui, had amazing strength. Before reaching the immortal realm, he had already reached the void refinement realm and was only one step away from reaching the immortal realm. It was not an exaggeration to call him a half-immortal. He was a famous expert in the Tang Empire. Since Jiang Luer could kill a half-immortal, he had obviously condensed the golden body Dharma form. He might have become an Arhat or a Bodhisattva. He might have recovered part of the Buddha's power. The journey to the west and the world of the White Snake were divided into different realms. Before becoming an immortal, there were 4 realms. After becoming an immortal, there were also 4 realms. Earth Immortal, True Immortal, Heaven Immortal, and Taoist Lord. After that was the 16th level Golden Immortal Tao Ancestor. It was the same for the Buddhists. After the mortal realm, on the Spirit Mountain of the West, according to strength and status, there were Arhat Realm, Golden Arhat Realm, Bodhisattva Realm, and Buddha Realm. Among them, the Arhat Realm corresponded to the Earth Immortal of Taoism. Golden Arhat corresponded to True Immortal. Bodhisattva corresponded to Heaven Immortal. Buddha corresponded to Taoist Lord. However, this was not absolute. Some Buddhist experts, although they were called bodhisattvas, actually had higher cultivation than some Buddhas. It was just that they could not fulfill their wishes and stayed at the bodhisattva level. In the original plot of the journey to the west, Tang Xuanzang was not so valiant. He beat a half-immortal to the point of crawling on the ground. What kind of cultivation attainment was this? At this time, after coming to the journey to the west, Qin Feng's cultivation had completely transformed into the immortal Tao, immortal power with the origin secret. His cultivation should also be at the 4th realm of the immortal realm, the Taoist Lord realm. He could be called a water-type Taoist Lord. Such strength should be considered above average in the all heavens. However, Qin Feng knew that it was best for him to keep a low profile. In this era where Tao ancestors didn't appear and hid in the heavens, Although Dao Lords could be the progenitors of a lineage, they still had to be cautious. There were many hidden talents in Chang'an, and there were many who had achieved the immortal path. More than half of the Tang Empire's experts were gathered in Chang'an. Clearly, this was a country ruled by immortals. Qin Feng casually sensed the fluctuations of magical power belonging to cultivators in the mansions of some nobles and officials. There were also divine Dao experts hiding in the dark, monitoring the world. However, as the capital of the Great Tang, this place was naturally restricted by the Dragon Qi. The Dragon Qi permeated the air and filled the central plains. This was especially true for the official residences of the Great Tang. All the cultivators there did not dare to move. Dao technique manifestation. Even Qin Feng, a Dao Lord who was extremely close to becoming a Dao ancestor, rank 16 Lord God, felt slightly uncomfortable and restrained against such suppression. If he showed any hostility to the Great Tang, he might immediately be devoured by the true dragon. When that happened, even a Dao Lord might be injured. This was a rule that Qin Feng found inconceivable. In the Spirit Sea realm, no matter how dense the Dragon Qi was, it had little effect on the cultivators and could not be manifested so directly. If there was an explanation for this difference, it could only be that the rules of cultivation were different and could not be changed. One could only adapt. However, the journey to the west is indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although this journey to the west seems to have mutated, I have to try and participate. At the tea stall, Qin Feng held a teacup and a strange light flashed in his eyes. If he could obtain merit, or take the opportunity to join Buddhism and become a Buddha, he might be able to take a peek at the creation of the universe and sever the three lives. After a while, he got up and walked toward a village on a street in Chang'an with 2 servants. After arriving in the Nanzhan department state, Qin Feng went straight to the Great Tang Empire. With some small tricks, he became a famous businessman in the Great Tang Empire and recruited many people. It could be said that he was doing well. Now in Chang'an, he was a little famous. Although he could not mix in the circle of the founding nobles, he was very popular in the circle of businessmen. Naturally, in Chang'an there was no lack of houses. To become a minister, to show kindness, to accumulate merit, and to be confirmed as the orthodox identity of the rules of heaven and earth, Qin Feng, who had invaded several worlds, was very familiar with this process. Now he, as Minister Qin, was well known around Chang'an. 3 months later. For some reason, during this period, there was an obvious increase in the number of Buddhists and Taoists in Chang'an. An undercurrent was surging, and the whole Chang'an seemed to be agitated. However, this did not seem to affect ordinary people. Chengda Street was the street closest to the imperial city. The people who lived here were either rich or noble. They were either great aristocrats or great merchants. In the 3rd mansion in the inner region, this place had vermilion gates and red tiles, and it was grand and imposing. In the depths of the mansion, in the flower garden, Qin Feng was wearing a minister's robe. He looked luxurious, with a special noble temperament. In the flower garden, he stood with his hands behind his back, pondering. A month ago, Li Shimin was entangled by a huge ghost dragon and caused a big disturbance. The experts of Buddhism and Taoism were helpless. However, half a month ago it was solved by Xuanzang alone. Now Li Shimin and Tang Sanzang had become brothers. Guanyin Bodhisattva had revealed his true body, and the general trend of the journey to the west was set. Tomorrow was the auspicious day set by Emperor Taizong for monk Xuanzang to travel to the west. Qin Feng looked in the direction of the Great Tang Imperial Palace, and thought in his heart. Li Shimin is the human emperor. Although he has no cultivation, he has the dragon Qi of the true dragon, the son of heaven, and the protection of the Great Tang Empire. It is unbelievable that a mere ghost dragon can confuse the human emperor. I'm afraid there is something fishy about it. I don't know if the ghost dragon is powerful, or if it has other secrets. However, I looked at it from afar that day. The dragon chi contained in the ghost dragon was blazing. I'm afraid it is not an ordinary ghost dragon. It might be the soul of the ancestral dragon. It said that the human emperor killed the Jinghe Dragon King and attracted the revenge of the Jinghe Dragon King. I'm afraid it is a fog bomb. I don't know how the human emperor provoked such a powerful dragon soul. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. But Tang Sanzang is even more terrifying. That day, he caught the huge ghost dragon and beat it up. Qin Feng's face twitched when he thought of the terrifying monk who rode the ghost dragon and beat it up. In the depths of the palace, the golden body of Buddhism manifested by the huge commotion was truly ferocious. The Buddha light that was as vast as the sea and the fist that was as big as a clay bowl hammered the ghost dragon that could threaten a celestial immortal to crawl all over the ground. He was slightly embarrassed. He did not put all his thoughts on this matter. Most of his attention was on a rumor. 2 months ago, a rumor suddenly appeared in Chang'an City. It seemed that a path to heaven was about to appear in the Nanjian Department State. This path led to the west and reached the Great Thunderclap Temple in the Spirited Mountain. It contained a peerless opportunity, great merit and great creation. It contained the opportunity to attain Tao. Heaven's will showed that this path could accommodate 5 people. Anyone who completed this path would obtain the opportunity to attain Tao. Chapter 13:26. This is different from the original journey to the west. Qin Feng had a strange expression. Although there were only 5 spots for the journey to the west, it seemed that everyone was qualified to enter. He had already sensed the phenomenon in Chang'an City. The experts of the various sects were gathering, and even some old antiques were ready to make a move. The journey to the west was also a path of Tao validation. It took countless eras for a Tao Lord to attain the Tao. On the path of Tao validation, there was no retreat. If God blocked the path, kill God. If Buddha blocked the path, kill Buddha. However, how can I, Qin Feng, miss out on such a wonderful thing? In the 13th year of Zhenguan, the year had passed. On the 3rd day of the 9th lunar month, the auspicious hour of Gui Mao. On the 2nd day, Taizong set up a court and gathered the civil and military officials. He wrote a script and used a pass seal to gather the civil and military officials. He sent the venerable master out of the pass and gave him the name Sanzang. Thus, the journey to the west officially began. Brother Emperor, you can drink this wine. It is better to love a handful of soil in one's hometown than 10,000 taels of gold in a foreign land. Emperor Taizong was in the prime of his life. He walked with a majestic gait, and the dragon chi on his body was dense. Even from afar, many experts were shocked. They hurriedly closed their doors to avoid offending the dragon chi. In the darkness, Qin Feng's figure was faintly discernible in the air. His eyes were filled with an unfathomable intent. Outside the pass, the gazes of many experts hiding in the dark also faintly landed on Tang Sanzang. The initial group of 5 for the journey to the west had been gathered. The core was the monk Sanzang. At this moment, in the eyes of many experts, Sanzang, who was hidden under the surface, was surrounded by majestic Buddhist light. It vaguely transformed into countless golden lotuses of merit, combining with the wishes of all living beings in the world to form the golden body of Buddhist merit, releasing an incredible divine light. What a Buddhist monk! As expected of a monk who reincarnated 10 times. Many experts secretly cheered. Apart from Sanzang, the other eye-catching thing was the white horse he was sitting on. The dragon chi in the white horse was deep, and deep within the dragon chi there were Sanskrit chants. The fluctuations of demonic power were also quite terrifying. After the demonic race became immortals, there were also 4 realms corresponding to Earth Immortal, Perfected, Heaven Immortal, and Tao Lord. They were Great Fey, Fey King, Heaven Fey, and Fey Saint. Although the white horse was of the Fey race, it cultivated in Buddhist cultivation technique. The flowing Buddhist powers indicated that it was at least a bodhisattva, an existence similar to a celestial immortal or celestial Fey. The other three also seemed to have other backgrounds. They were dressed as palace guards. One of them was a Taoist expert. He carried a long sword on his back and had a slender figure. He seemed to be an expert of the sword cultivation lineage of Mount Shu. He was also a celestial immortal. Among the other two men, one of them had a stocky build and walked with a majestic gait. His short hair stood up like steel needles, and his aura of lightning surged. He seemed to be a divine immortal of the Divine Firmament sect, one of the 12 Taoist sects of the Great Tang. This was a celestial immortal who was skilled in lightning punishment. Everyone knew that the Divine Firmament sect was famous for its lightning punishment heritage. Its ancestral masters were the heavenly venerables of the Heavenly Court's Thunder Department. This was the Orthodox Tao sect, the direct disciple of Jie School, one of the 3 sections. The other person looked unusually skinny, with a terrifying baleful aura that dared to fight against the heavens and the earth. His bloodline power faintly manifested a divine kingdom of laws in the void. This person was actually a rare expert of the witchcraft Tao. At this time, other than the monk and the horse, the other 3 people after setting off, either dressed as walkers or as itinerant monks, just like Buddhist disciples. In fact, that was the case. In the eyes of the Tao ancestors, these disciples could be said to be existences who had broken through the door. Although the journey to the West's path to heaven was a path of Tao affirmation, it was still a path of Buddhism. If one wanted to take this path, it was inevitable that they would break through the door. In addition to the group of 5, there were also a few followers. They had gathered a dozen people. It has begun. After Tang Sanzang left the pass in the west, the Tao ancestors in the depths of the world sighed secretly. Many Tao ancestors seemed to see a billowing baleful aura of calamity surging out from the depths of the primordial world. Its killing was tragic, and even many Tao ancestors were abnormally afraid. If they rashly interfered, even the Tao ancestors might fall into it. On the journey to the West's path to heaven, whether it was the Tao ancestors of Taoism or the Earth-type Buddhas, they could no longer interfere. At the same time, many experts were also preparing to take action, including Qin Feng. After bidding farewell to Emperor Taizong outside the pass, the master and disciples traveled for a few days and arrived at Guangzhou City. There were already officials of Guangzhou City waiting to welcome them into the city. After resting for a night, they left the city early this time. They ate and drank thirstily along the way. They stayed at night and traveled in the morning. After 2 or 3 days, they arrived at the river Province Guard. This was the border of the Great Tang's mountains and rivers. Here, many experts also followed for a night. As if there was a tacit understanding, they did not attack within the borders of the Great Tang. The master and disciples seemed to have noticed something. Except for Tang Sanzang, the other 4 people, as well as their followers, were very cautious. The next day, when they left the borders of the Great Tang, the group was even more vigilant. It was late autumn, and the roosters crowed early. It was only the 4th watch of the night. The group of more than 10 people faced the frost and looked at the bright moon. After walking for dozens of miles, they saw a tall mountain in the distance. The people who were secretly following were already ready to make a move, and their eyes were fierce. However, at this moment, they saw Tang Sanzang and his group stop in the kernel. For a moment, this sudden change caused many of the people who were about to make a move to restrain themselves. The handsome and somewhat cold monk riding on the tall horse turned his head and looked at the group of disciples dressed as guards. He said in a cold voice, "Masters, this little monk is already very grateful that you have escorted us all the way here. We are going to the Spirit Mountain of the West to seek the true Scripture. The journey is thousands of miles away, and the future is uncertain. Masters, please return." When these words were said, not only the group of disciples, but even Qin Feng and the others who were hiding in the dark were secretly shocked. This young monk was starting to chase them away. Among the 5 people, the 3 heaven immortals were stunned for a moment before their expressions turned cold. The burly man with a thick beard from the divine firmament path chuckled and said, "Master, you must be joking. A master for a day is a master for life. We have no regrets about taking Elder as our master and escorting Elder to the west. Moreover, we have no home now. How can we go back?" In addition, the heaven immortals dressed as sword immortals from the Mount Shu sword sect, as well as the experts of the witch tribe, all had strange expressions on their faces. They were either sneering or indifferent. How could they give up such an opportunity? Blinded by greed, a mere heaven immortal junior dares to covet the heavenly opportunity of the journey to the west. At this moment, many experts secretly sneered, and their killing intent was cold. At this moment, the handsome monk on the horse looked up, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He put his palms together and chanted a Buddhist name. "Masters, you must have heard wrongly. This little monk is asking you to leave." He paused for a moment, and then said word by word, "Even if you don't want to leave, you have to leave." A trace of golden light flickered in the cold eyes under his sharp brows. His hands quickly formed a seal, and in the next moment, a Buddhist hand seal was sent out. A hazy swastika symbol swept across the mountain range. The 3 heavenly immortal experts, and a portion of their followers, who harbored ill intentions, were sent flying with a bang. The mountain range collapsed, and the figures who were vomiting blood were blasted into the depths of the mountain range in shock. Chapter 13:27. Looking at the group of people who had been sent into the depths of the mountain by a Buddhist palm print, Grand Elder Tang lowered his eyebrows slightly. He pressed his palms together and chanted a Buddhist mantra. He was about to continue riding his horse. At this moment, when he turned around, he discovered that a black-robed man with a strange and exquisite long sword had appeared in the midst of the rubble without him noticing. Tang Sanzang's expression changed slightly when he saw this black-robed man. This person had appeared silently. Even he did not notice this method. An expert. Moreover, it was an expert whose strength was far above his. At this moment, many experts in the dark also recovered from the shock of seeing Tang Sanzang cripple so many disciples with one strike. Their gazes fell on the black-robed man who had suddenly appeared. Amidst the shock, killing intent vaguely appeared. There was no doubt that this was an expert who was fighting for the journey to the West's path to heaven. The black-robed man was none other than Qin Feng. "Greetings, Grandmaster." Qin Feng's expression was indifferent. His eyes flickered with a different kind of Zen intent. He also pressed his palms together and bowed slightly. Sometimes, the devil was Buddha and was proficient in the devil path. Qin Feng had also cultivated the Buddhist Tao. Although it was not the Buddhist Tao of the primordial world, it had an aura that was different from the Buddhist Tao of the primordial world. Tang Sanzang frowned as he looked at the black-robed man. The other party had an indistinct aura that made him feel extremely threatened. However, there was also a Buddhist aura that was quite attractive to him. However, as a disciple of the West Earth's great Thunderclap Temple and the third disciple of Gautama Buddha, he had never seen such a strange Buddhist aura. This Buddhist aura caused traces of ripples to involuntarily arise in his heart that was like still water. A Tao Lord. In the West Earth's spirit mountain, the Thunderclap Temple. When Qin Feng revealed his true body, many bodhisattvas and Buddhas immediately looked over. A Tao Lord was an important existence even in the 3 religions. Each of them was the core of the 3 religions. The 3,000 Buddhas, 500 Asuras, the 8 great Vajras, and the boundless bodhisattvas all held banners and lids. Under the exotic treasures and immortal flowers, many people had strange expressions. At this moment, great Guanyin Bodhisattva, the leader of the four bodhisattvas, suddenly spoke. Gautama Buddha, I can see that there seems to be traces of Buddhism on this child. However, I can't find any traces of this child when I operated the Heaven's Secret and looked through the 3 realms, 6 paths, 10 directions, void and eternal sands. Why? Upon hearing this, the attention of the 3,000 Buddhas, 500 Arhats, 8 Vajras, and many Bodhisattvas was immediately diverted. They looked at the great Guanyin Bodhisattva with astonishment in their eyes. Among the Buddhists of the Westland, the great Guanyin Bodhisattva was a bodhisattva held hostage by Amitabha, the cult master of the Nirvana world. It could be said that his power was immeasurable and his status was revered. Although he was a bodhisattva, his great wish had been fulfilled long ago. In ancient times, he had already attained the honorable position of righteous light Tathagata. He was one of the Buddhas of Spirited Mountain. For even the righteous light Tathagata to be unable to see through this Downlord, there had to be something fishy going on. Seeing this, Tathagata shook his head. Since the beginning of the pilgrimage to the West, the Heaven's Secret has been in chaos. The path to heaven has been hidden by the evil aura accumulated for billions of years. The Heaven's Secret has changed greatly. Not to mention you, even I can't see through it clearly. As soon as these words came out, the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas of the heavens were all shocked. Many Bodhisattvas and Buddhas had experienced such a situation once. However, every time it happened, it represented the arrival of a great calamity. Didn't this mean that another great calamity was coming? For a moment, many ancient Buddhas felt a chill in their hearts. Some of the thoughts in their hearts were completely extinguished. It wasn't just the Buddhists of Mount Numinous. In the depths of the 33 heavens, several Tao ancestors also sensed this change. They all ordered their disciples to close their doors and not get involved in karma. Standing where he was, he took a deep look at Qin Feng. To everyone's surprise, Tang Sanzang didn't attack Qin Feng. He just looked indifferent and rode away on his horse. Qin Feng didn't care about such a cold reception. Holding the water-seen diffraction sword in his hand, he smiled and moved his feet slightly to follow him. However, after following Tang Sanzang, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and his heart skipped a beat. He clearly sensed a strange change. It seemed that the road under his feet was exceptionally heavy. After walking for more than 10 miles, Qin Feng felt that it was more real. It was as if his body was invaded by an inexplicable force, causing many mortal emotions to appear in his Downlord realm. The longer he walked, the more serious this erosion was. Grumble. After walking for more than 10 miles, he actually felt hungry. The rumbling of his stomach was particularly clear in the wilderness. Qin Feng was a little stunned. Since he had succeeded in his cultivation, he had been eating and sleeping in the open, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. His divine body was in accordance with the laws of the great Tao. He had already cultivated the law Tao body. Logically speaking, even if he walked for 100,000 miles, he wouldn't feel hungry at all. Grumble. Coincidentally, Qin Feng heard a similar sound of thunder in his ears. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw the cold-looking monk on the horse. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with surprise. Tang Sanzang pulled the reins and held his stomach. He pondered for a moment, and in the next moment, he seemed to have an idea. He calmly jumped down from the horse, looking unusually relaxed. He took out the purple gold alms bowl from his luggage and walked in front of Qin Feng. "Sir, I'll have to trouble you with the matter of begging for alms." After saying that, he walked to the side of the white horse and sat down cross-legged. He actually started chanting scriptures, as if the scriptures in his mouth could resist hunger and fatigue. Qin Feng looked at the purple gold alms bowl in his hand. Qin Feng wanted to ask Tang Sanzang the reason for this, but when he saw Tang Sanzang's appearance, he felt helpless. As a Dao Lord, he had to do this business without any capital. This was the first time he had done it. He glanced at the monk and looked around. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a gust of wind and flew in all directions. At the same time, he used his divine sense to search for people in this barren mountain range or the fruit forest. However, after walking for half a mile, he suddenly stopped in the void. He held the alms bowl in one hand and the sword at his waist with the other. Feeling the chilliness in the air, Qin Feng's eyes revealed a trace of coldness as he swept his gaze across the surroundings and spoke. "Everyone, I advise you not to make a mistake. It's best if you don't provoke me. Hurry up and make way." After a moment, seeing that there was no movement in the void in front of him, Qin Feng smiled coldly. "Stubborn, you're courting death." He activated the Khanate Yin and Yang Qi that he hadn't used in a long time and turned into a Khanate Yin Yang Tai Chi diagram. The brilliance swept across, and the densely packed cultivators fell from the void like ants, dying one after another. Several beams of intense brilliance flashed past at an extremely fast speed and landed hundreds of miles away. They looked at the scene in shock. Among the several beams of intense immortal light and Buddhist light, Qin Feng found three familiar figures. One was a sword immortal carrying a huge sword on his back, another was an immortal surrounded by lightning, and the last one had a murderous aura and a terrifying force condensed on his body. They were the three disciples that Tang Sanzang had chased away earlier. The others were a few demon kings surrounded by black wind. The group of people looked at Qin Feng with pale faces. They never thought that the group of people who joined forces to set up an ambush to kill this person would be killed in one fell swoop before they could even make a move. The remaining few people still had a look of unwillingness in their eyes. They couldn't enter the journey to the West team, but they couldn't tolerate others joining them. There was still a trace of greed in their eyes. Stopping or killing the members of the journey to the West team that couldn't enter the journey to the West would also give a corresponding blessing of merit and providence. Chapter 13:28. I actually escaped with my life? Qin Feng was slightly surprised, but then he frowned. Obviously, his understanding of the rules of the desolate land was still too weak, and some of his magical powers could not be fully unleashed. This was because he was not used to the attacking methods of the immortal Tao. But it doesn't matter. If one sword doesn't work, I'll use two. The majestic sword light slashed across, and a bloody mist fell. The remaining few people were all dead. Qin Feng's figure flashed, and he disappeared from the spot. In the vicinity of the Twin Forks Ridge, there were few people, but there were many wild fruit. Qin Feng's figure turned into the wind, and he searched the mountain, and found many wild fruits. When he returned, Qin Feng was slightly stunned. Among the piles of rocks, there were many demon corpses. A few of them were especially powerful. They were a bison, a bear, and a tiger. Their bodies were huge, and they were mutated. They seemed to be surging with demon power, and there was even an inner core in them. They were probably at the Demon King level. In the center of the demon corpses, Tang Sanzang was calm. When he saw Qin Feng's light descending, he immediately stood up from the ground, took the alms bowl in Qin Feng's hand, and grabbed a handful of wild fruits to eat. His actions were unusually elegant, like the wind and the moon. "Elder, these are..." Qin Feng's eyes swept across the group of demon corpses on the ground. "Oh, just now, 3 demons ran over and said that they could live forever after eating this monk's flesh. They wanted to eat this monk. This monk tried his best to persuade them, but they didn't listen. In the end, this monk accidentally killed them," Tang Sanzang said casually, and a small bowl of wild fruits instantly entered his stomach. Qin Feng, on the other hand, was a bit confused. "Oh right, those three guys, the bison spirit is called the Special Virgin, the bear is called Lord Bear Mountain, and the tiger spirit is called General Yen. Do you know them?" After eating the wild fruits, Tang Sanzang seemed to be full. He looked at Qin Feng, and there was an inexplicable majestic pressure. Qin Feng's eyes flickered, and he shook his head. "These wild demons, who knows where they came from?" Tang Sanzang nodded. The two of them rested for a while before setting off. Perhaps it was because they had killed a large number of people who were courting death that many hot-headed existences finally calmed down a little. The journey of half a month could be considered peaceful, with only wind, frost, rain, and snow passing by. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, Qin Feng began to ask Tang Sanzang about some of the Zen principles and Dharma of the other world. Although Qin Feng was very eager to comprehend the mystery of three lives, he also knew that in Zen cultivation, reason was the foundation and Dharma was the last. Only by being proficient in Buddhist principles would one be able to comprehend the profundities of Buddhism and ultimately understand the profundities of the three lives of Buddhism. Although Tang Sanzang was surprised by Qin Feng's obsession with Buddhism, he didn't hide anything and taught him everything he knew. If Qin Feng, the Taoist lord, had asked him for advice on Buddhism, Tang Sanzang might have hesitated. However, it was a different story if he asked for advice on Buddhism. Buddhist principles were different from Dharma. Dharma contained the abhijna of Buddhism and was a secret of the various sects of Buddhism. It was the foundation of a sect and would not be passed down to outsiders. However, Buddhist principles were different. This was a compulsory lesson for many bodhisattvas in the world. Passing it down to outsiders was not a taboo, but a merit. Preaching to the world and saving all living beings was the great wish of every true bodhisattva. Since Qin Feng, the Taoist lord, was personally asking for advice, how could Tang Sanzang neglect it? Along the way, Tang Sanzang spoke with all his might. Qin Feng listened attentively. He gradually started to comprehend the cultivation methods of the Buddhist sect. Although he had not obtained any Buddhist cultivation methods from the other world, he was still able to comprehend them. However, in Qin Feng's opinion, the many Buddhist scriptures were indeed filled with supreme Dharma of Buddhism and were the general outline of all cultivation method. As his understanding of Buddhism deepened, his Buddhist nature had already manifested. With regards to this point, many experts of the orthodox celestial sect of wonders saw this and felt disgusted in their hearts. In the primordial world, ever since the investiture of the gods, the conflict between the three sects of Taoism and Buddhism of West Earth had become increasingly acute. Although the East and West did not erupt into a huge conflict, the clues had already appeared. However, Buddhism had prospered over the years and countless experts had appeared. Especially with the opening of the journey to the West, the prosperity of Buddhism could no longer be concealed. The Taoist experts were helpless. In contrast, the many bodhisattvas, Buddhas, and Buddhas of West Earth's Spirit Mountain were all smiling when they saw this scene. They even looked at Qin Feng with a hint of friendliness. If he could enlighten a Taoist lord and lead him to the Western Paradise, there was no doubt that the Western Paradise would have another important Buddha. This would be a big deal even for the Western Paradise, which was known to have 3,000 Buddhas. Half a month later, in front of a mountain, Tang Sanzang said to Qin Feng, "Junior brother, the 3,000 Buddhist scriptures that I know are now yours. Now, your understanding of Buddhism can be considered to have reached a small success." After pondering for a moment, Qin Feng nodded. "Thank you for your help, senior brother." Qin Feng's face was now filled with streaks of sparkling brilliance. A strong Buddhist aura circulated in his body. Even Tang Sanzang was shocked. However, this was considered normal. After all, the other party was a Taoist lord. He was in the perfected immortal soul stage and was only half a step away from the immortal soul third level. If he focused on comprehending Buddhist scriptures, It was not exaggerated for him to grasp it in half a month. However, in Tang Sanzang's opinion, this junior brother had a Buddhist aura that was different from the other branches of Buddhism. That was the most important thing. That special Buddhist aura was so strong and so transcendent. It was as if it had never been seen before since the creation of the world. Even when he glanced at it, he could not help but feel his heart tremble violently. This was going to be a brand new sect. This made Tang Sanzang have a feeling that perhaps this new junior brother of his would be able to create a new branch of Buddhism and become another Buddha that was hard to come by even in the ancient times. Qin Feng's expression did not change. In the past half a month, he had not only listened to Sanzang's explanation of Buddhist scriptures. He had also begun to integrate his own inner demon Tao and some of the mysteries of the Pure Land of Buddhism. He did not cultivate the spiritual mountain's Buddhist mantras. Instead, he purely integrated what he had learned, comprehended, and created his own Buddhist mantras. He had mastered the Pure Land of Buddhism's supreme techniques, the All Beings United and the Supreme Whirling Golden Light mantra. He had also used these techniques to create the Inner Demon Tao and the Ancient Demon Heart Sutra. Qin Feng had his own understanding of the 3,000 Buddhist scriptures. He also had some clues about the mysteries of the 3 lives of Buddhism. He had a vague feeling in his heart, but there was always a layer of fog in his heart. He could not fully comprehend the true mysteries of the 3 lives and the true self hidden in his sea of consciousness. However, that mighty sacred Buddhist light was already on the verge of bursting out. His eyes were crystal clear. It was as if an aura of great enlightenment had appeared. It was as if he had understood the past and present lives and had awakened the past, present, and future incarnations. Waves of invisible majestic power appeared from the void and integrated into the Buddhist aura in his body. A round of supreme Buddhist light was faintly discernible, as if it could be condensed in the next moment. Chapter 1329. However, it was still not enough to form a round of clear sacred Bodhi light. However, it was still very scary. Normally, an eminent monk would only have such a Buddha nature after cultivating for a lifetime or accumulating merits and virtues. If one could condense a Buddha's light relic, it would be a step away from transcendence, and one's physical body would become an arhat. In the cultivation of Buddhism, the sarira was a very important realm. Only when one's spiritual will was purified to the extreme, and one's mind was pure to the extreme, could the sarira be condensed. Forming a relic meant that one's Buddhist cultivation in the mortal world was close to the limit. Qin Feng was a Taoist lord at the peak of the immortal realm, and his realm was enough. If he wanted, not only could he form an arhat relic, but he could also form a golden body relic or a bodhisattva relic. However, in his opinion, it was a waste of his pure Buddhist nature. Qin Feng had greater ambitions. Even if he entered Buddhism, he must become a Buddha. At the right time, he could even use this opportunity to see the true meaning of 3 lives. In fact, the most important thing was that he did not have a complete Buddhist scripture. This needed time, and the main God space also needed time to deduce. In fact, Qin Feng had another guess. Buddhism was also divided into Hinayana and Mahayana. Now that Buddhism had not been established in the East, although Buddhism was prosperous in the Tang dynasty, most of them were Hinayana disciples. As everyone knew, the highest realm of Hinayana cultivation was the Arhat realm. Arhat was a short name for Arhat. It was also translated as Allah. This was the highest realm of Hinayana cultivation. However, this was only the first realm of Buddhism's Lane Temple in the West. Those who reached this realm had all their worries removed and were supported by the God. They would enter nirvana forever, and would no longer suffer the pain of reincarnation. However, in Mahayana, the Buddhas believed that they should not limit themselves to nirvana, but to liberate all living beings. After the birth of Mahayana scriptures and the birth of bodhisattvas and Buddhas, the Arhats gradually evolved into the role of Dharma protectors after the fall of Buddhism. The more famous ones were the 18 Arhat. However, in front of the Buddhas in the billions of worlds in the West, these 18 Arhats didn't have a very high position. If Qin Feng wanted to become a Buddha, he naturally had to cultivate the Mahayana Dharma. As for the specific differences between Mahayana and Hinayana, Qin Feng vaguely consulted Master Sanzang. The heart of Bodhi is the lifeblood of Mahayana Buddhism. Just like what the Venerable Adi Gorge said, Buddhism and Taoism are separated by conversion, Mahayana and Hinayana are separated by heart. Other than the heart of Bodhi, there was no other reason to distinguish between Mahayana and Hinayana. No matter who it is, when the heart of achieving Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings is born, it can be said that from then on, as a Mahayana cultivator, he had already begun to cultivate the path of the Bodhisattva. Yuesheng Bodhisattva once said, "The Bodhisattva has a compassionate heart and a non-disloyal heart. The Bodhi heart is the Bodhisattva cause." Therefore, it can be seen that when one can have an abstract understanding of the unique emptiness of all Dharma and have a strong compassion for all living beings and a pure Bodhi heart, one has already ascended to the small resource path. If one did not have such a heart, no matter how profound his understanding and wonderful his actions were, he could not be called a Bodhisattva. Without the heart of Bodhi, it was impossible to cultivate Vajrayana, let alone Mahamudra and great perfection. In summary, the difference between Mahayana and Hinayana was clear. Hinayana could only save oneself or some people. Mahayana, on the other hand, could save all living beings. As for how to save all living beings and how to achieve the highest Buddhahood, this was the ultimate goal of Tang Seng's journey to the West. Although it was impossible to achieve Mahayana in one step. However, according to the Transmigrator and the Emperor of the East Mountains' understanding of Buddhism, Qin Feng still summed up a rough part of the Mahayana Buddhist cultivation method. Now, he was deducing in the God space. Of course, Qin Feng did not forget his original purpose of understanding Buddhism. As many Buddhist principles gradually entered his mind, he gradually became more and more familiar with Buddhism. He had a feeling that it would not be long before that kind of hazy feeling would be completely torn apart. The killing of his past body would be achieved naturally. Many thoughts collided in his mind. At this moment, a voice sounded in his ears. "Masters, we have arrived at the 5 Elements Mountain." A slightly heavy voice sounded. Qin Feng opened his eyes and looked over. It was a burly man carrying luggage. He wore a mugwort leaf-patterned leopard skin hat on his head, a cashmere brocade robe on his body, a lion belt on his waist, and a pair of suede boots on his feet. His eyes were round and his black beard was tied up. This was a hunter on the Twin Forks Ridge. Of course, he called himself a hunter, and his name was Lu Buqin. He heard that Master Sanzang was traveling to the west to save all living beings, so he voluntarily followed. After seeing Lu Buqin, Qin Feng knew that this person was a member of the witch tribe. This person's divine power was monstrous, and his killing intent was shocking. Although the witch tribe's aura was well concealed, it could not escape the eyes of Tang Seng and Qin Feng. However, the two of them did not refuse this hunter Lu to join the group. The reason was very simple. Qin Feng did not want to carry the burden. Master Sanzang had a lot of luggage, a cassock, food, customs documents, a change of clothes, and a lot of miscellaneous things. Although the burden was as light as a cow's hair to Qin Feng, it was very embarrassing to carry it on his shoulders. After half a month of physical labor, Qin Feng could not bear it anymore. Qin Feng was very happy that Lu Buqin was willing to come and carry the burden. In addition to the hunter called Lu Buqin, there was also an Azura. It was a blood-haired youth with a blood-red demonic blade on his back. His killing intent was shocking. This Azura looked ugly and ferocious, but his strength was not weak. He was probably an Azura king in the Blood Sea. Qin Feng did not care about one more Lubuqin, let alone one more Azura king of the Blood Sea. Qin Feng did not care about Qin Feng. As long as the two of them did not provoke him, Qin Feng did not care. Fortunately, along the way, the two of them were very respectful to Tang Sanzang and Qin Feng. Probably because they saw Tang Sanzang and Qin Feng fight, the two of them at least kept enough respect on the surface. As for what happened behind the scenes, no one knew. 5 Elements Mountain. Hearing this name, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. So what if it's the 5 Elements Mountain? Almsgiver Lu, seeing your serious face, is there anything strange about this place? Tang Sanzang said faintly. His expression was like a flower blooming in the clouds. A delicate charm appeared on his handsome face, which made people gasp in admiration. During the exchange with Qin Feng, although Tang Sanzang was preaching the Tao to Qin Feng, he had also obtained many profound and wondrous Buddhist techniques from the other world. It seemed that his understanding of Buddhism had also reached a higher level. Rumor has it that this place is extremely dangerous and contains danger. It is a place sealed by a terrifying ancient expert. Before Lu Buqin could finish, the Azura king beside him disdainfully interrupted. That's enough, Lu Buqin. You don't have to show off your knowledge. You're just a monkey who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Where did this little demon come from? How dare you speak ill of me, old son, at the foot of the 5 Elements Mountain? You're courting death. An arrogant and ferocious voice suddenly sounded in the air. The young Azura king's complexion greatly changed. Immediately after, a terrifying club blasted out from the void. With a bang, the young Azura king was smashed into a meat patty. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.